A very good morning to everyone. We have a great speaker with us, Sir Inderaj Ahluwalia. Sir Inderaj Ahluwalia is a world-renowned and outstanding travel journalist and author, with literally thousands of articles featured in both international and Indian media outlets and publication. The list of publication to which he contributes is so long that it would be taken hour to go through it. Ahluwalia sir is also a prolific travel author. His travel books entitled Meet Me at the Border, Travels with My Turban, The Sick in the Snow, and Born to be Sick, which is under production, have become smash hits in India and internationally. He has also written a mega coffee table book on historic Gurdwaras entitled The Blessing Seeker. The four books have captured the interest and imagination of keen readers and travelers worldwide and evoked enormous spontaneous praise. He has been recognized professionally. Well, what can I say? Brace yourself. Ahluwalia's brilliant and distinguished writing career has been crowned by several international and national awards for travel writing. His impressive list of honors and awards includes the prestigious Mark Twain Travel Journalism Award by Heidelberg Convention and Visitors Bureau as acknowledgement for his writing over the years, as prize winner of Mark Twain Traveler Journalism Award, and in recognition of his journalistic achievement for Heidelberg, the mayor of the city and the director of its Convention and Visitor Bureau have also jointly conferred on him the Heidelberg Mark Twain Club membership. He is the first and only Indian writer to be given this award. He has also been awarded as a Medal de or du Tourism, which is known as a Gold Medal of Tourism, by the French Ministry of Tourism or exceptionally brilliant and comprehensive writing in France. This unique and coveted honor is given to personalities who have been contributed in a significant way to promoting France and strengthening bilateral relations. He has also been facilitated by Léon Bertrand, the French Minister of Tourism, and Bruno Fernex and Catherine Oden, directors of the French Tourist Office. The gold medal is conferred on a privileged and elite group of personalities worldwide for outstanding achievement and services in their respective field. He is the first one and only travel journalist to be so awarded. With this, sir, I'll take this opportunity and would like to invite you for the kind deliberation, sir. Sir, please.
Thank you very much for that very illustrious build-up. First of all, let me thank the faculty of Amity for inviting me for this talk. I'm deeply honored. And the topic given to me is to talk about destinations. I will therefore attempt to hold your hand and take you along with me to 20 or 25 outstanding destinations in the world, places which may be known or may not be known, but are exceptional. And I hope that at the end of this talk, you will actually want to go there. Let me just mention right in the beginning that for me to talk about foreign destinations in a way means I have to talk about my life in the last 41 years that I've been a travel writer. I must tell you that many years ago, a very young man got onto a train in Delhi to take a little joyride. He thought he'll take a little ride and then after 20 minutes or half an hour, he'll get off and go home. But the train picked up speed and the young man couldn't get off. So he tried to make himself as comfortable as possible on the train. And that's how the saga started. I often feel that the world is living in a different orbit from me, or I'm living in a different orbit from the world. Because wherever you go, people say the world is getting smaller. Everywhere you go these days, they say the world is getting smaller because the planes are bigger, the ships are bigger, the trains are running faster, communication is instantaneous, so everybody says the world is getting smaller. But I don't agree. I think the world is getting bigger. Because if the world was not getting bigger, then how could you explain the fact that in Australia, in a place called the Blue Mountains, they have just very recently discovered a clump of 40 trees which are 25,000 years old. They are called the Wollemi Pines. And the government of Australia has now sealed off that area. Nobody's allowed to go there. They were discovered by two brothers who were trekking in the Blue Mountains. And they came across these trees, which were very unusual looking. And when they did all the experiments in the botanical gardens of Sydney, they realized these trees were 25,000 years old. They've survived. And these Wollemi pines, as they are called, are now a national treasure in Australia. If the world was getting smaller, how do you explain the fact that in South America, they found a dead fish which had wings? And when they performed an autopsy on that dead fish, they came to the conclusion that it was a survivor of the legendary flying fish, which is from the age of the dinosaurs. If the world is getting smaller, then how is it that they are now discovering that the Pacific Ocean is much deeper than they used to think it was? How do you explain the fact then that the Bermuda Triangle now seems to be in 5 places in the world? So the point I'm trying to make, ladies and gentlemen, is that the world is not getting smaller. It's getting bigger, it's getting more exciting, and it's becoming more mysterious. My first overseas trip was in 1981 to Sri Lanka. I had just started off as a travel writer, and we were going to Colombo for a meeting, and there were 1,000 of us. And realized over there, when I arrived there, that I was perhaps the youngest and the least experienced of any of the delegates. So the result was they didn't give me a room in the hotel in Colombo. And I got a room actually in another hotel called Mount Lavinia, which is on the edge of Colombo. And when I went to that hotel, I actually realized that it was much better than I thought it was. I was very, very excited at the fact that I was out of the country. And I slept very well. It was my first night spent outside India. And in the morning, when I was having breakfast, one of the managers came up to me and said, "Sir, were you comfortable last night?" And I said, "Yes, I was very comfortable and I slept very well. Thank you." And I thought to myself that maybe the reason he was giving me attention was because of my personality, or the fact that, I must have got something special. Anyway, when I came back to the hotel that evening, the general manager met me and he said, "Look, I hope you were comfortable in your room." And I said, "Yes, I was very comfortable. Thank you." And that's when they told me that they were very concerned about me because the room they had given me was a haunted room. And that's the only room that they had available. And so they gave it to me. And I thought to myself, this is terrible. Here was my first night out of the country, and I was given a room that was haunted. But I quickly learned that when you leave your home, you leave behind everything to do with your home. And the world becomes a very, very exciting place. I believe you can't see me now, but can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you, but your picture has gone again, sir.
Yeah, it's disappeared. I wonder.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. Maybe because of network, sir.
Yes, network.
Yeah, we are hearing
your
you,
team. Okay. So from there, I went to a place called Kandy, a very, very beautiful place. And Kandy is world famous because it has the temple of the sacred tooth. One of the tooth of the Buddha is enshrined in that temple. And it's a world famous pilgrimage spot. Absolutely, absolutely beautiful. And Kandy was my first real tourist destination outside India. And it was the first place that I started to write about as a travel writer. And I had a host, his name was Tony, and he took me to this place called the Botanical Garden. And it was beautiful. absolutely beautiful. And he said to me, you know, we are actually famous for two things here in the botanical garden, and both of them start with the letter C. Can you tell me what they were? And I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't know. You tell me. So he said, you know, one of them is coconuts. We have the world's largest coconuts. And I looked up, and sure enough, there were these coconuts on the tree. They were huge. They were literally the size of a football. And I asked Tony, I said, look, Tony, what happens if a coconut drops on somebody? And he said, you know, it has never happened in life. And while he said this, a coconut actually dropped off the tree and smashed to smithereens. And I told Tony, I said, look, so he said, there's a first time for everything. So I realized that he was a nice, friendly guy with a sense of humor. I think I have a sense of humor. And while we were talking, I felt something nibbling at my heel, you know, like a little dog nibbling at your heel. I turned around, and it was a 3-feet crocodile who was trying to bite my foot. And I turned around to Tony and I said, Tony, you didn't tell me there are crocodiles here. And he said, sir, you didn't ask. So now, wherever they take me in the world, where there are 2 trees and a little water, I ask them, do you have crocodiles here? And they give me very strange looks. But I'll tell you something, it's better to get strange looks than to be bitten by those little crocodiles. They're very vicious. But I realized that the world is what you make of it. And I realized very quickly, that's one of the very few things I realized, that if you can go through with a smile, you become an ambassador for your country. When I came back to India, I didn't know what was more exciting, the memories of my trip or the fact that I got a chance to show off to my family and my friends that, hey, you know, I was abroad. Unfortunately, in those days, there were no digital cameras, there were no cell phones. So I couldn't share anything with them, but I told them all the stories of my visit. And then started my journey. I would travel overseas every single month after month and after month. I started to travel and I started to enjoy travel writing. I started to understand what it is. And I found myself one day in a place called Kiruna, which is in Sweden. If you ever get the chance to go to Kiruna, please don't miss it, because you cross the Arctic Circle to go there. And when you cross the Arctic Circle and you get to Kiruna, it is the home of the world famous ice hotel. And they call it the ice hotel simply because it is made purely from ice and snow only. The beds are ice, the walls are ice, the building is ice, everything is the ice. They even have a bar run by the Absolute Vodka Company. It's called the Absolute Bar. So you can sit there and have a drink, and then you leave your glass in the side of the room, and it stays there for 6 months and then melts along with the whole hotel itself. So it melts every year in April, and they rebuild it every year in October. And it is something which is exceptional. People actually book a room 7 years in advance. Now, when I was there, I couldn't sleep. The temperature inside the hotel was -5 degrees. And so I decided not to waste my life just sleeping, and I started to move around, and I took a little tour of the hotel by myself. They had a sculpture exhibition going on. I saw that nobody else was awake. Everybody was sleeping except me. But I did a full tour of the ice hotel, and then I stepped out, and it was snowing. It was snowing heavily. And I remember that they have a little church over there, a little chapel. So the doors are always open. I went inside. It was very beautiful. Now, what happens in that church is that if your name has the letters ICE in it, then they marry you there for free. They don't charge you any money. Of course, you have to bring your own spouse. They don't provide you with a partner, but the marriage ceremony is done free of cost. Unfortunately, because my name doesn't have the letters ICE in it, I escaped that. But nevertheless, I thought it was a great experience. In the morning, we were standing outside the building. A Japanese young lady came to me and asked me if she could talk to me. And I said, most certainly you can talk to me. You know, it's a beautiful surprise to be standing outside a place like the Ice Hotel and then have somebody come and ask you if they can talk to you. And 2 minutes later, she was joined by 3 other Japanese ladies. And they surrounded me and started talking to me. They bowed at me, I bowed at them. They bowed again, I bowed again. So we went on bowing. And anyway, finally, they asked me if they could get a photograph taken with me. And I said, certainly. So I had a photograph taken with them. And once again, I was hoping that I wish I had a camera. I wish I could have taken this photo home. I wish I could have shown off to people back home. But that didn't happen. And I started to really think that there was something exceptional about me. That, I was the only guy these Japanese ladies wanted to talk to. My whole fun was spoiled when their tour leader came to me and said that I wanted to thank you. I said, no, no pleasure. Absolutely, it's fine. No hassle. And she said, I just want to tell you that these ladies belong to a certain sect in Japan. And they believe that when you're traveling and you see a very, very strange person, then it is very nice to be very polite to that person. And therefore, they've never seen a more strange looking man than you. And that is the reason that they were crowding around you. So suddenly, my world was brought crashing down. I realized it wasn't my personality after all. It was just the fact that I was so different in appearance. But again, I learned that the more you travel, the more you learn. And from there, I went to another place across the Arctic Circle, and that is called Rovaniemi in Finland. Now, Rovaniemi was as beautiful as Kiruna. It's similar looking, full of snow. You don't see any people around. But Rovaniemi is world famous because it is the home of Santa Claus. Santa Claus actually lives there. And obviously, like everybody else, we went to meet Santa Claus. And he was a little intrigued to see me. And he said to me that I don't remember a person earlier walking into my office wearing a turban. So I said, well, thank you, etc., etc. And I found that instead of my interviewing him, he started to interview me. He asked me who I was, where I'd come from, what I do, did I enjoy being a travel writer, etc. And I found I was getting embarrassed because I found we were holding up the queue. We were holding up the people behind me, but it was great fun. And 1 year later, coincidentally, I was back in Rovaniemi and I went back to meet Santa Claus and he recognized me. And so when you are with Santa, they take a photograph of you with him. And then when you're leaving, you can actually buy that photo. So I have a couple of photographs taken with Santa Claus. And whenever I get an opportunity, I show people those photos. But a lot of my friends make fun of me and, they want to pull my leg and they look at the photo, then they look at me and finally they say, please tell us which one is Santa and which one is you. So I just find that the more you travel, the more you learn to laugh. That's why I think they say travel broadens the mind. If you go to Australia, everybody knows the big cities like Sydney and Melbourne and Adelaide, Brisbane. They're all very beautiful. But they have a town there called Coober Pedy. Coober Pedy is in the middle of the desert. And it is world famous today because 90% of the world's opal is mined there. It's a mining town. So the opal is mined there, turned into jewelry, and the whole world likes to go there because once the mines are excavated, people start living in them. They are known as dugouts. And in Coober Pedy, you can meet some of the world's celebrities. Whenever you go, somebody or the other who's a world leader is there. But Australia has so much to offer. I mentioned the Wollemi pines. They are growing in a place called the Blue Mountains. And the Blue Mountains, I believe, are among the most beautiful, beautiful places in the world. Absolutely stunningly beautiful. And I just never realized that one of the things that the Blue Mountains is famous for is the sheer density of the forest. You can actually walk for 3 or 4 miles and you can't see the sky because the canopy is all trees and ferns. But that's how the world thrives. And that's how tourism thrives. And those are the stories that people want to read from a travel journalist. I started to write on the Blue Mountains and I started to write a lot on Melbourne because Melbourne is very different from Sydney, but it's a city with a lot of culture, It's world famous for its food. I very quickly seized upon the fact that all the countries in the world who are doing very well in tourism are not just doing it because they have beautiful places. They are doing it because of very skillful packaging and marketing. And travel journalists obviously have a very, very important role to play in that skillful packaging and marketing. It's important not to overdo it. It's important not to underdo it. It's a very subtle business. In Japan, the first time I went to Japan, I actually fell in love with the country because it's so different. And the Japanese are very different. They're very traditional people. And I had a wonderful guide in Tokyo. And he said, "Sir, I am totally at your disposal. And you tell me what you want to do and what you want to see in Tokyo." So I had heard a lot about the Ginza, which is actually not a street, it's a district. And the Ginza is world famous because during the day, it's a commercial center. All the Japanese companies, Sony, all these companies are there. And at night, it becomes a very big entertainment center, with the restaurants and the discos and the bars, etc. So we went there, Tony and I went there, and we went into a little restaurant. And I told Tony, I said, "Tony, I would like to buy you something." So he said, "No, no, no, sir, you're a guest of the government. I've been asked to look after you." So I wanted to show off a little bit. So I said, "No, no, no, Tony, you let me pick up the bill." So he looked very hesitant, but he agreed. And anyway, when the bill came, I almost fell off my chair because my entire budget for 15 days was wiped out. And that's when I realized that Tokyo is one of the most beautiful, exciting cities in the world, but it's very expensive, especially the Ginza. So after that, I stopped showing off whenever I went to Japan because I realized that it can be a very, very costly business. But the Japanese are very progressive. They are loyalists. That's what I like about them. And I must mention to you a very interesting thing that happened. You've all heard of the Shinkansen bullet train, which is the fastest train in the world. As a matter of fact, Prime Minister Modi is now trying to bring that train into India. Now, the bullet train had just broken the world speed record and been designated the fastest train in the world. And so there was an air of excitement everywhere in Japan. People were so proud and so happy and so excited. And I joined in that excitement. And 2 years later, I happened to be in Japan, and everybody was walking around with a very long face. And so I asked my guide again, I said, "Look, what's the problem? Why is the country in mourning?" And he said, "The train speed record of the bullet train has been broken by the French train called the TGV. So we are no longer the fastest train in the world." And so everybody was depressed. And I realized how much all this means to the Japanese. And there was a message in it for me that it is so important to be loyal to your own country and to feel proud of your own country's achievements. I think my attitude towards my own country changed a little bit with that. And I started to see things in India with a different eye. I started to realize that, maybe we are not as bad as we think we are. Actually, we are very good. Japan has some outstanding things, absolutely outstanding. And Tokyo is an outstanding city. So is Osaka. So is Kobe. If you go there, some Indians feel scared that they may not get Indian food, but they need not worry about anything. Actually, Indian food is now available almost everywhere in the world, including in Japan, including in China, including in Taiwan. And so traveling in a way has become much easier, especially for conservative Indians who used to feel nervous about traveling earlier. I must dwell on countries like Germany. Take a country like Germany, which had suffered so much after the end of the Second World War. The area around the Rhine River, most of Berlin, they had been bombed out. Cologne, all the cities had been bombed, Dusseldorf. But they worked so hard, they rebuilt so hard, that today Germany is the number one country in Europe. And it is the number one engineering power in the world. But very few people realize that Germany is also a great, great tourist destination. It's a great travel destination. You have a city like Hanover, which is the #1 trade city in the world. But Hanover also has some things which are incredibly beautiful. One of them is called the Gardens of Herrenhausen. They are just absolutely very, very beautiful. They have an annual parade called the Schützenfest, which is a hunter's parade. You know, the hunters get together, they wear their dresses, they have their guns, and they parade down with the bands. And thousands of people come, they line the sidewalk, and they cheer them up. And Germany has absolutely incredible tourist attractions in their small cities. There's a town called Hameln. I'm sure all of you have heard the legend of the Pied Piper. Hameln is the place where the Pied Piper legend was born. That is where the Pied Piper led those children into the river 750 years ago. So if you go today, they have a Pied Piper tour. There's a man who dresses like the Pied Piper. He still plays the flute, and you follow him along on the route. And I think it is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Cross over into France, and you are in the country that gets the maximum number of tourists in the world. France gets 85 million tourists every year, #1. Followed by Spain, Italy, and the United States. These 4 countries together account for 25% of all tourist arrivals in the world. Now, if you go to these countries, you begin to realize that they are successful again for the same reason, that you have a national treasure. It could be a building, it could be a monument, it could be a garden, it could be a forest. You have the national treasures, but the way you package it, the way you sell it, the way you project it, and the way you write about it is actually what leads to people coming there. And once they arrive, everything depends on how you treat them. So I feel that for anybody who wants to become a travel journalist, the first thing to learn is not how to write, but the first thing to learn is how to understand a foreigner. If you are having a meal in another country, I think if you understand what the food is all about, you will go on to become a very, very good travel journalist, because that's what it's all about, catching the pulse of the locals. You go to New Zealand, it's a small country, it's a beautiful country, absolutely beautiful country. And the original settlers in New Zealand were the Maoris. The Maoris apparently came to New Zealand from a place called Waikiki. They left Waikiki because there was no water. So they got into these dugout canoes and they started rowing. They didn't know where they were going, but they were looking for land. And many of them died because they used to get so tired that they used to fall into the sea and the sharks would get them. But when the survivors reached land, at that time they didn't know, this piece of land is what we today call New Zealand. An absolutely brilliant, beautiful country with very progressive people. That is why you must have seen they do very well in sports. They do very well in all functions of life, because the Maoris had one thing going for them: uncomplicated thinking. And when they say travel broadens the mind, this is what they mean. If you go to a country where people are less complicated, you can understand why certain things are the way they are. When you go to a country where there is more political turmoil, you understand why things are the way they are. So it's not the monuments, it's not the Taj Mahals of the world. It is the people that make a tourist mecca. And travel journalists play a role in that. And how they play the role depends from person to person to person. In the United States, when I first went to Walt Disney World in Florida, I was completely shocked. You know, in India, we've all heard of Walt Disney. We've all been to exhibitions and circuses, but the sheer depth and the scale of Walt Disney World is mind-boggling. They do it so beautifully. And it's amazing, you know, sometimes they get 85,000 visitors a day. So all these institutes are built on tourism and on travelers. and not necessarily foreign travelers. In the United States, 50% of all travelers are domestic travelers. They're Americans who drive from one part of America to another. And if you look after domestic tourism, you will do very well in life because you create the infrastructure. Everywhere you go, there is excitement. If you go to Turkey, I must say that Istanbul for me is one of the most interesting and beautiful cities in the world, for the simple reason that one half of Istanbul is in Europe and the other half is in Asia. Imagine a city with one half in one continent and the other half in another continent. And in between the two sections is the strip of water called the Strait of Bosphorus, which is very, very beautiful. But Istanbul has so much culture. It has the Blue Mosque. It has the Hofia Sagia, which used to be the Saint Sophia Church, and it's now a mosque. It's grand looking. And you have this place called Sultan Ahmed Square. It's a city built on history. It was the center of the Ottoman Empire. And if you like food, and if you like meze platters, as they are called, the Mediterranean food, then Turkey is a great, great place to visit. It is hugely colorful. It is fantastic. An hour's flight from Istanbul is a place called Cappadocia, which is obviously absolutely one of the strangest places in the world because they have these natural phenomena. They're called fairy chimneys. This is the result of millions and millions of years of wind erosion has carved these pillars in the hills. And today the world goes to see these pillars in Cappadocia. So the more you travel, the more you learn. We all know Israel, and we all know Israel is a small country. But if you are fond of traveling, I don't think you can afford to miss visiting Israel. Because in Israel, you have Jerusalem, which is the holiest city in the world. Jerusalem is the cradle of three of the world's great religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Imagine three of the world's big religions headquartered in one city. But just an hour's drive from Jerusalem, you have the Sea of Galilee, which is a freshwater lake and absolutely, totally biblical. You all know that Jesus Christ was supposed to have crossed the Sea of Galilee in a boat. And they actually found a very old boat over there. It's 2,000 years old. And now some people are trying to establish that this may have been the boat used by Jesus Christ. So every corner is holy. And just an hour's drive from there, you have the most unique place in the world called the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is the lowest spot in the world. It is 400 meters below sea level. And they call it the Dead Sea because nothing survives. There's no fish, no insects, no reptiles, nothing can survive there because it contains 27 times more salt than ordinary seawater. But it is ethereally beautiful. Absolutely, absolutely beautiful. And it is guarded by a place called the Fortress of Masada, which is where a lot of Jewish and Roman history was enacted. And I think it's a country that must be visited because it's small, it's compact, and it's very beautifully organized. They also have in the Dead Sea this black mud called the Pyoline mud, and that is supposed to be very good for the body. It's supposed to be very good for rheumatism and arthritis. And so they give you a mud pack. And what they do is you go there and they make you lie down and then they rub all this mud over you and leave you alone for half an hour. And then they wash off the mud and you're supposed to look very beautiful for a very long time. Now, when I went there, they put a lot of mud on me. And when they washed it off, I thought that I would look very beautiful for the rest of my life. But it doesn't work that way. But the fact of the matter is that that is what tourism is all about. Tourism just doesn't offer you what you can see. It offers you what you can think. And it offers you food for thought for yourself. So most tourists will tell you that after they started to travel, their perception of the world changed. and their perception of themselves also changed. This is how travel broadens the mind. I go on traveling. I go on traveling. I tell myself, as long as God gives me the strength and the opportunity to travel, I would like to do so. I would like to carry on, and I would like to keep writing on the places that fascinate me the most. And talking about fascination, what can I say? I mean, we all know about the Emirates. A lot of Indians go to Dubai all the time. But just next to Dubai is one of the other Emirates called Fujairah, which you may have heard of. And believe me, next time you get a chance to go to Dubai, please also go to Fujairah because it is stunningly beautiful. It has the world's smallest Hilton hotel on the beach. It is fabulous. And nothing has changed in 2000 years. They've left their history totally intact. If you go to Oman, the capital, Muscat, is a very beautiful city. Very neat, very clean. There are a lot of Indians there. The Omanis are very welcoming and very friendly people. But there are some excellent places. There's Salalah, which is worth seeing. There's a place called Nizwa, which is 2 hours drive from Muscat. And Nizwa is world famous because that is where Islam started. So Nizwa is known as the egg of Islam and the nest of Islam because the religion of Islam started in this place which is called Nizwa. It was and still is a very small oasis in the middle of the desert. They have one fort, they have a little settlement, but it is a place reeking with history. And so every country is different. Every society is different. Everything is different. But there is a common thread. And that common thread is that I believe all human beings are like an onion. You know, there's a layer after layer after layer. So on the top, I think everybody is very different. But if you go to the second layer, there are similarities. If you go further down, eventually you come to know that people all over the world where you travel are not very different from people here in India. We are the same as them, and they are the same as us. We look different, we eat different food, we speak different languages, we may have different cultures. But beyond that, there are huge similarities. And one of the ways to sum up and see and absorb those similarities is to travel. Because traveling is emancipation. Traveling is actually everything. You've all heard of the mighty fjords in Norway. The fjords are arguably one of the marvels of nature. Just like I mentioned to you, the Blue Mountains in Australia, the fjords are really, really a marvel, and the world goes there to see the fjords. Now, the gateway to the fjords is a beautiful town called Bergen. And it's from Bergen that you catch a boat and you can go to the foot of the fjords. They are just mighty mountains rising out of the sea. Absolutely, stunningly, stunningly beautiful. And when you go and see the fjords, you realize that actually we are very small. We are very, very draft out. If you are familiar with Africa, they say that Africa gets into your blood. It's true. If you are familiar with Africa, there are many things I'm sure that you will like about that continent. But if you go to South Africa, let me assure you, it's one of the most beautiful, beautiful countries in the world. They have the Kruger National Park, which is a great wilderness area. And they have a place called Hermanus, which is actually the world's best whale watching spot. The Bay of Hermanus is where the southern right whales come every year in August, September, October. And from your own hotel room, you can see these whales, dozens of them in the bay. It is absolutely stunning. And if you cross over from South Africa into Namibia, which in my book is the most beautiful country in the world, they have the world's highest sand dunes, 400-meter high sand dunes next to beaches which are 300 kilometers long. And you could be driving along the beach and you don't see a single human being. And then in the distance, you see a reddish patch and you ask yourself what that reddish patch is, and suddenly it explodes because they are 1 million flamingos and they take wing, they start flying, and the whole sky becomes red. And just to go to those sand dunes or to go for a balloon ride, a hot air balloon, is, I think, paradise in your grasp. So the world carries on the way it always has. And I keep telling myself that, have I done things the right way in my life? I don't know. I will never really know if I did the right thing or if I did the wrong thing by becoming a travel writer. But I do want to tell you that when I started travel writing, I thought I was just going to do it for 6 months or 1 year and then, move on or something like that. But it got into my blood. It just got into my blood, with the result that I couldn't let go. The train is still moving very fast. The young man who got on the train 40 years ago is no longer young. But he doesn't know now whether he should get off the train or not. Because getting off that train means stepping into the real world. What will he do? How will he survive? How will he meet people? Imagine for 40 years living in a bubble of your own and then suddenly being catapulted into the real world. So the train is slowing down. They want him to get off, but he hasn't got off the train yet. When I first started travel writing, I come from an army family. My father and mother used to go to the army mess. And, around that time, the children of all the other officers were also looking for jobs. And so, my parents would meet my father's colleagues and they would say, my son is becoming an engineer. And somebody would say, my son is becoming a scientist. And then somebody would say, my daughter is studying dentistry. She's going to become a dentist. And what does your son do? So my parents would say, our son is a travel writer. And they would say, oh, that's very nice. But what does he do? And then, they would say, well, he's a travel journalist. They say, yeah, that's all right. Wonderful. But what does he do? I must say my parents never conveyed this to me. And I never knew that they were the butt of a little bit of humor. And I never knew that travel writing was not viewed seriously at all. There were only 3 of us travel writers in India at that time. And somehow I survived. Everybody told me that I would collapse. I wouldn't be able to survive. There is not too much money in it. All that is true. In those days, there was absolutely no money at all, I must admit. Even today, there is a little less than it should be by any standards. But the sheer joy, the sheer pleasure of being a travel journalist made up for everything that I could have ever got. So I never had any regrets about that. I don't have regrets even today about that. All I know is that the adventures I had are absolutely incredible. And some of the things that happened to me are so bizarre that I felt that while I've written thousands and thousands of articles and people have read them all over the world, it was important for me to catalog them in a book form. And that is what made me write my first book, which is called Meet Me at the Border. And my second book, which is Travels with My Turban. And my third book, The Sikh and the Snow. These books actually are a compilation of my travels around the world and the huge amount of adventures that befell me at every turn. Wherever I went, something was happening. People were crowding around me. Finally, I want to tell you that because I'm a Sikh and I wear a turban, I obviously attract more attention in some parts of the world than other people. Imagine a situation where you have 1,500 people from around the world in a delegation, in a convention, and only one of them is wearing a turban. So after 2-3 days, it becomes inevitable that you get noticed much more because you're there in all the photographs, everybody sees you. So I had so many adventures where people came up to me and they introduced themselves to me and they asked me who I was. And they would ask me about my religion because I realized very few people knew what the Sikh religion was or is. They would ask me the length of my turban, whether I wore my turban every day. And of course, uh, please don't tell anybody this. I'm only telling you this because I like you. Very often I was mistaken for royalty, and people would think that I'm a Maharaja. And I didn't want to tell any lies, so I used to keep quiet. But I told myself that if they think I'm a Maharaja, who am I to spoil their fun? So in many countries around the world, people still think that I'm some kind of a royal, and they don't know that I'm just a humble travel writer. Many times in the Arab world, I've had Arabs come to me and ask me if I am a sheikh. And I've said, no, I'm not a sheikh. I'm just a journalist. I've even been asked questions how many cars I have in my fleet, how many camels I have in my stable. And once or twice I was asked how many ladies I have in my harem. Now, because I had none of these three, it was a very touchy subject, but I smiled and I kept quiet. And when I would keep quiet, people would think that not only I'm a Maharaja, but I'm a big one. And when this started to happen very often, I started to feel very guilty. And one day, I was giving a talk in New York, and when I couldn't take it anymore, and when one journalist got up and asked me if I was a Maharaja, I said, no, I'm not a Maharaja. I'm actually the Maharaja of Kuchni High. And till today, some people think there is a state in India called Kuchni High, and I'm the Maharaja. And one day in Dubai, it was a similar situation. I felt so guilty that I said, I'm the Nawab of Kebab. And they took it literally. Until today, they think that I'm the Maharaja of Kushni Hai and the Nawab of Kebab. But between being this fictionary Maharaja and a fictionary Nawab of Kebab, I am what I always was, a humble travel writer. And I feel that I owe everything to God for what He gave me, for everything that He managed me to do, that He made me do. And in my own small way, I've been a brand ambassador for India for so many years. I never knew that I was, but I used to get featured and I had to then answer questions. So I learned. Now, I could have been somebody else. I could have been a doctor, but then I wouldn't have been able to see the great elephant migration in Africa. I could have been a golfer, but then I wouldn't have been able to see the southern right whales in Hermanus. I could have been a bureaucrat, but then I wouldn't have been able to go to Tokyo and get into a slanging match with sumo wrestlers, which was done in my honor. You know, I could have been a golfer, but then I wouldn't have been able to walk across the highest sand dunes in the world. I could have joined the armed forces, but then I wouldn't have known the sheer delight of having a little crocodile come and bite you. I could have been a professor or a teacher, a profession that I like and admire very much. But then I wouldn't have been able to wake up one day and suddenly realize that my tent had blown away in the middle of the night and I hadn't even noticed. So the world is what it is. You know, everything is still the same. Russia is still the largest country in the world. The Vatican and Nauru are still the smallest countries in the world. The soldiers are still soldiering. The doctors are still operating. The teachers are still teaching. The lawyers are still litigating. And I'm still doing the only thing I've ever done in my life. Dream, dream, dream. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Inder Raj Aluwalia. As they say in Africa, let's walk together. Meet me at the border and join me on my travels with my turban. Who knows, you might bump into the Sikh in the snow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your lovely talk. I
Oh,
must
thank
say
you.
that we never felt going away from the world, and we were enjoying each and every part which you were mentioning in your talk. And in fact, we were thinking that maybe we are there when we were hearing about Jerusalem, or we were hearing about Istanbul, and then the Dead Sea and so many other places. I think in 1 hour you have given us uh, the tour of the world.
Thank you.
And in fact, it is only the time that is not allowing us to go beyond this. But let me tell you, sir, we all want to hear you for as long as you can do that, and we are ready. I mean, because
Thank
of the
you.
COVID situation that we are not able to see you physically in the campus, and because of some technical glitches here also. But let me tell you, sir, the moment we are open, we will call you in the campus to have your deliberations, to have your experience, because we don't have to go anywhere. We just have to listen you, and then we are there in the world.
Thank you.
Now I would request all the participants, if they have any questions for sir, they can write in the chat box or the question answer box, and we will take up those questions. But before I invite my participants to ask their questions, can any of my faculty colleagues, if they want to ask anything, because I'm sure that after your deliberation, sir, they must be having some questions. And uh, I 100% enjoyed your talk, sir. It's my
Thank you very much. Tell me,
and
you still can't see me, I assume.
सर सर मैंने आपको देख लिया सर, मैं तो कल शाम से आपको देखा हूं, इसलिए मुझे तो अब योर पिक्चर इज फिक्स्ड इन माय माइंड सर. So even if
Yeah,
you are
but
not technically present here, but I can see you, sir. But
okay.
there is some technical issue, sir, which we are unable to sort it out right now, and
Mhm.
your picture is still not there. But if you want, sir, we can try again one more time to see you on the cam.
Why don't you try? We can take a 2-minute break then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can just relog in and see if the things work out, sir. ललित सर, एक बार सर से थोड़ा हेल्प लेकर के सर की थोड़ा हेल्प कीजिए प्लीज, अगर सर का वीडियो आ जाए किसी तरह से. We are on 2 minutes break, and we'll have questions later on.
Yeah, I would rather not log out and log in because something else may
Okay.
go wrong. But in
Yeah,
case your
yes, sir.
expert
Yes, sir.
if he can fix it.
ललित सर, एक बार सर की जरा हेल्प कर दीजिए प्लीज.
सर क्या क्या प्रॉब्लम आ रही है सर?
कैमरा नहीं आ रहा सर का.
सर वो नेटवर्क का इशू है सर के एंड से, क्योंकि बीच में लैग हो रहा था सर का वीडियो.
तो कुछ हो सकता है उसमें, क्योंकि नेटवर्क तो सर के एंड पे है. हम लोग जैसे पहले अपना कैमरा ऑफ किए थे तो सर आ गए, सर का आ गया था. फिर दोबारा से एक बार ट्राई करके देखें क्या? Can we switch off our cameras and then we try if sir camera can come up?
Do I need to press anything here?
Sir, if you can see that if it is coming again, that start my video option
Uh,
at the center
yeah.
of your screen.
सर
Yeah, it's
प्लीज
come
स्विच
again.
ऑफ एंड स्विच ऑन योर कैमरा सर.
Sorry, I can see
सर एक
myself
बार
now
आप
after.
कैमरे को सर बैक कीजिए, इसको बैक कीजिए
हाँ जी,
सर. एक बार कैमरे को ऑफ करके कैमरे को ऑन कीजिए.
हाँ मैंने ऑन कर दिया है.
ऑफ करके ऑन कर दीजिए सर, लॉग आउट मत कीजिएगा, ऑफ कीजिए और ऑन कर लीजिए.
मैंने जब ऑन किया है तो उसमें आ गया प्रीव्यू ओनली एंड स्टार्ट माय वीडियो.
स्टार्ट माय वीडियो सर.
ओके, वो मैंने कर दिया है.
नाउ वी कैन
So-
सी यू सर, परफेक्ट.
Visible, sir.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I can request now my faculty colleagues to open up their camera.
It's a pity that I think I missed the whole thing visually. So you can see me now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can see you. I think
In
everyone
case-
can see you now.
In case it's a problem, I can always switch off again.
No problem, sir. I think we should now take up the questions, because participants have started pouring in questions.
Right.
Before that, I said if any of the faculty members, if they want to ask any questions. Parikshit sir, Dr. Parikshit Sharma, he is very prolific photographer, we have two prolific photographers in our team, sir. Dr. Parichay Sharma and Dr. Pramen Singh. So Dr.
Wonderful.
Parichay Sharma, he wants to have a question for you, sir.
Right.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for an interesting walkthrough through the 7 continents and the oceans that we have, through your journeys of 40 years, which we still have to cover in our age, because I'm
Thank
still
you.
less than 40, the age that you have covered through your journeys. My question to you is, sir, that when we talk about the journeys that you have sailed through so well, how would a new travel writer get the finances so that he can also travel to the journeys that you have taken, or at least to the half of the part of the journey that you have taken so far?
So let me answer your question in two parts. One is that I got no financial help at all because I come from a middle class family. My father was an army officer, and I knew that between my two sisters' education and my education, whatever money my parents had was going into our education. You know, parents are always sacrificial towards their children, and education is the most important thing in life. So I was aware of that, and I therefore made it a point not to expect any money from them. It was very difficult. Many people told me that I won't last more than 2 years because there was no money in it. And fortunately for me, I just somehow, God helped me, I stuck to it. And once people started to like my writing, government started inviting me. And so the way opened in that sense. But I spent a lot of money from my own pocket on my travels because I knew that if I only go on a fixed itinerary, then there's nothing unique about my writing. You know, I mean, if I go to France and I write about Paris, what's the big deal? You probably know more about Paris sitting in your home, you know. But if I write about a place called the Loire Valley or a place called Biarritz, which you haven't even heard about, and they are beautiful, you will say, hey, hang on, this man has done his research. So actually, I spent a lot of money from my pocket, which was not meant for this, which was meant to buy a car or buy something. I sacrificed that for this. So getting directly to the second part, it's always a little tough to earn money in travel writing. But I feel, and my advice is very simple, you give it your best shot. Do your best. Make your writing like jewelry. And God will open the doors. You will get some sponsorship. There are a lot of jobs in the electronic media now. When I started as a journalist, there was no travel channel. There was no geographical channel. There was nothing. There was only Doordarshan, which meant, bade dur se darshan, literally. So today you have, I think, 350 channels in India alone. So there is opportunity. But in order to get to that threshold, your job is to do some high quality writing. And high quality writing is writing from your heart. If you've come to my home for a meal and something was not correct, put it down. Don't worry about my feelings. You're not a PR man. You're a journalist. So if you do your best, the doors will open. Opportunity will come again. And my 3 travel books, fortunately for me, are very popular. But I started to get a little depressed because thanks to the COVID, I was not being able to sell copies. You know, because I used to give so many talks, the talks stopped, everything stopped. But then look how God helps you in life. Now everybody phones me to say that, you know, since we can't travel abroad, we want to read your books of travel abroad. So you have to be a little patient and you have to work very hard. The money will come. The money will come. It's hard to put your finger on where it is, but I have a feeling that 20, 30 new channels will open up. Because you have to now. Life is going to change, you know. I used to travel abroad once a month. Now I'm not traveled for 2 years, naturally. Can't go. So opportunity will come again. If you are genuinely fond of travel writing, if you want to make travel writing your career, then plunge into it. Build up your things. Start writing. Start with one, then go on to another thing. I'm always available for some 2 bits advice. If I can help someone, I always try to help. And there's a reason for that. I tell myself that God helped me so much. The least I can do is pass it on to others. So the future is bright. It's not gloomy. Yeah.
Of course, sir, the future is very bright. Parikshit sir, you have any other question? Let me continue with that. Okay, so sir, related to what you have said, sir, right now, that the future is very bright, because a lot of participants had similar question in yesterday's talk also, that they wanted to develop or they wanted to start in travel writing, but they were worried about the initial finances. And I hope that with your answer on this subject, on this particular question, they must have got some clarification. Now we have one more question coming up from Dr. Pramein Singh. Dr. Pramein, your question, please.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
And thank you so much for such a wonderful and beautiful stories which you have told. Moreover, the way you were telling, I mean, we were lost and imagining, just imagining, how the things went with you. And so my question to you is that, you told about the small incidences which happened with you, and you very beautifully portrayed the stories around them. So for the travel writers, what and how they should focus on these small incidences so that they can make big stories out of small incidences like this.
So let me give you.
And so
go
the
ahead.
way of delivery to make it appealing and attractive.
Okay, so let me give you the tip of the century. You mentioned just now about small incidents. One very good thing you could do is to pick up one or two of these small incidents and tell yourself that they are not small for me. Build your story around those small incidents. So, for example, if you've gone to, let's say, Bangalore, right? And because you're there, you feel that let me do an article on Bangalore, some aspect of Bangalore. So as a conventional travel writer, you will go to the Vidhan Sabha, you'll go to the gardens, etc., Whitefields, whatever there is from that point of view to see. But maybe if you look at one aspect of Bangalore, a small incident, and say, okay, this is the base of my article. Start with that, and you will find that you will be able to go round and round that as a writer. Try that. Ignore the big things, go for the small incident and make that the base of your story. That is one way that you will be different from others. And sooner or later, when you write like that, people notice. People can always make out. Now, for example, I get at least one call a day from people who want to join me in travel writing. But the point is very simple, that today you have to tell yourself that, look, am I going to actually be a travel writer, or am I going to spend 1.5 hours every day on the internet and download the material? Now, if I download material from the internet, or even if I had spoken today about things from the internet, you would have come to know. So stick to the facts, stick to the small incidents. If there's a food item you like in Kerala or in Assam, why not focus on that food item? Because around that food item, there is a little history. How that happened, how it's cooked, where it's come from, what are the religious do's and don'ts around it, and you will find that your pen will start flowing. That's one way. You won't have any problems.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Very true, sir. I think Sunil sir, you must tell the report writers that they must include all these points from sir, who are they are the very valuable points, and we must look at those points later on and take the guidance from those points. Now we have Aruditya sir with us. Aruditya sir, your question, please.
Good morning, sir. I hope you can see me.
Yes,
Yes,
we
I
can
can.
see you.
Yeah, although we couldn't see you, sir, earlier, but I felt like I'm listening to a podcast, and it was a pleasure to listen to you because
Thank you.
you have the power to, make us imagine how you experienced different places. Now, my question is that since you have traveled to so many destinations and you must have interacted with lots of host communities, is there any particular host community which stands out in your memories, which was different from the other ones?
So when you mean community, you're referring to the religion?
No, sir, just community in general, the local
Yeah,
people.
sure. So it's like this that, you know, there is something called generalization. We generalize, you know, and I learned that one should never generalize. For example, there used to be a theory that people in Paris were very unfriendly. In fact, everybody used to say the Parisian is a very unfriendly animal. But when I first went to Paris 35 years ago, I actually had people stopping me on the road and shaking my hand and asking me if I would care to go and have a coffee with them. Now, my French host and guide used to get very shocked. He said, I've never seen this in my life. Partly it's because I look very different, obviously, when in a foreign country, but partly I think you have a chemistry of your own. You walk into a room, some people can sense that chemistry. So, all communities are quite friendly, but they have barriers. So, if you go to Scandinavia, which is Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, if you go to these countries, the people are very, very sober by nature. They're not going to come and slap you on the back and say, Hi, how are you? How are you doing? No. But they are very reserved by nature because of the climate. It's very cold over there. It's gray. You don't have time to go out and start cycling or do this, do that. You can only do that for 3, 4 months in a year. So over a period of time, their nature has become serious. They're serious people. You have to earn a living in a very serious way. But they are very, very nice. So if you go to Scandinavia and if you see that the people are very quiet, they're not really saying hello to you or anything, don't let it put you off. You go and say hello to them. And the moment you do that, and the moment they feel that you're a good person, you will see how hospitable they are. Similarly, there are some countries like New Zealand and Australia where people are very laid back. They're very friendly. I found Australians very friendly with me. Again, it's to do with the climate. It's so hot that you can't help but wear a pair of shorts and go and sit on the beach. So, the climate and the lifestyle dictates people's thinking. All communities are the same. Some are very reserved and some are very gregarious. You don't know which is which in the beginning. So your best bet is to be friendly and polite, and you will find that the world will come around you. They're the same. They're just the same. It's only the lifestyle that is different. I found no country to be unwelcoming. I mean, I was not kicked out of any country. On the contrary, I was offered citizenship in 3, 4 countries, but I didn't do that. So I think you'll get your answer when you go. They're the same. Everybody's the same, but remember, some people are more reserved than others.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we have some questions in the chat box also.
Right.
One of the participants is asking, and I think she's talking about your talk also. Loved your talk, sir. It was so refreshing. Just out of curiosity, wanted to ask if you have ever been to Russia and what your opinion was on it.
Okay.
Your opinion about Russia.
So first of all, thank you for the compliment of the talk. I have never been to Russia purely as a matter of chance. But I was once meant to go to St. Petersburg when they were celebrating their 300th anniversary. I was invited, but it clashed with another trip and I couldn't go. But I happen to know a lot about Russia. I don't write about it because I haven't been there, but I know a lot about Russian history and what Russia is today. And I can tell you that it is a very beautiful country. And Russians are very warm people. They're very, very warm people. Only thing is, don't make the mistake of sitting down to have a drink of vodka with them, because they drink straight from the bottle, you see, and they expect you to do the same. But they are very hospitable. They are very warm. They are very pro-Indian. And Moscow is a very grand city. It's a grand city. And St. Petersburg is very beautiful. But I have not been to that country. Maybe one day I may. But it's worth a visit, definitely.
So there's one more question coming up from the participants, that how safe the world is for women travelers. Any guidelines?
Yes, that's a very relevant question, because I also personally, and especially being a Sikh, I am very concerned about the way women and girls are treated in India in many, many places. We all make a little noise when there's an incident. The press writes about it. People come on television and they make speeches about how bad it is. But I'm afraid 2 days later, it becomes history. And I've always felt that don't leave everything to the government. The people should do something. It's a very important thing to ensure that women and girls are made to feel safe and that their dignity is never compromised. Coming to the world, there are some countries which advertise themselves as being the safest in the world. One of them is Japan. Totally 100% safe for men and for women. The other is Austria. Very, very, very safe. A woman can travel around Austria on a bicycle at night in the middle of the jungle. She's fine. The third is Switzerland. The fourth, to a very large extent still, is Germany. The fifth is the Netherlands, Holland. And the sixth is Belgium. To a large extent, I would say New Zealand. And virtually the entire Scandinavian belt is very safe for women. Other countries are in between. Their mentality of the people is very good, but you have some nefarious criminal elements everywhere now. Singapore, for example, is very safe for women. Thailand is very safe. Taiwan is very safe. So there are some countries which are traditionally very safe for ladies, and there are some where they are safe, but the hotel manager will tell you that, look, ladies, try not to go out alone at night. It's not worth it. So it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. But there's no country which is labeled as being totally like criminally insane women. There's no country like that. It's just that in some countries, women are kidnapped. In Northwest Africa, there are a lot of incidents. Boko Haram, for instance, in Nigeria was kidnapping women for ransom. So all that is happening, but there are some countries which are very, very safe. I wish the whole world would follow their example.
Yes, true, sir. And there's one more question coming from the participants. She's asking, is knowing the foreign language compulsory for traveling or being a travel writer?
I would say no. At one time, it was very important, but today the need for learning local languages has receded, thanks to the fact that the host countries have brushed up on their English because they realized that English is the standard language. For example, France was very anti-English, and they would refuse to even answer your questions in English at some point. But today, you go to France, most of the young people speak very good English. Netherlands, they speak English. Even China, which used to make a lot of money from tourists on the language excuse. You know, you needed an interpreter, otherwise you couldn't survive. And the interpreter would charge you more than your hotel bill. But today, they also realize that if you start doing that, the world won't come. So I would say that language is important, but not essential. You can do without it.
Yes, thank you, sir. Any other question from, yes, Sunil sir, you wanted to ask some question.
So very good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Morning, sir. It was such a wonderful to hear you, and since I am from the airlines background, sir, and I've worked for 20 years with the different airlines. And when you said the word Scandinavia, that was one of my airline which I was also worked for a number of years. And we used to take a fam trip for Stockholm, then to Kiruna. So during the fam trips also, we realized sometimes at the time of travel writing, a lot of people faces challenges. Although sometimes they never tell us what are the challenges they are facing, or sometimes they like certain things, but sometimes they don't like whether to write those things and all. So I just guidance from you in the sense that what are the challenges one faces at the time of visiting during the fam trips, and how to overcome those challenges, sir?
It's like this, that every person follows his own route. So I followed my own route as a travel writer. I flew SAS many, many times. In fact, their general manager used to be a gentleman called Ben Kalingard in those days. He was with me the first time I went to the ICE hotel.
Okay.
And so was a lady who worked there called Seema Luthra. She was also there, part of the thing.
Yeah.
That was my first trip there. My feeling on this is that only don'ts, should we say, in a list of do's and don'ts, is to write something which hurts local sentiments. For example, if you go to a Hindu temple and you know that in Hinduism or in Hindu temples, something is not welcomed, it's frowned upon, it's very important to know what that thing is and to try to follow it up. It's not enough for me to say, look, I'm sorry, I'm not a Hindu, so I didn't know. That's not good enough. So I think if you can avoid hurting local sentiments, 70% of the local sentiment is built around religion, 30% is built around lifestyle. Steer clear of that one thing, everything else is fine. Everything else is fine. As I said, if you come to my house for dinner, and I offer you fish curry, and there's a little thorn in the fish, you're not going to think badly of me. Or
True.
if the cook has put little more chili or little more salt, you're not going to hold that against me. Right? But if there's something dramatically wrong, if I insult you when you come, then you will remember that right till the end of your days. So I think there's only one thing, that is avoid anything which hurts religious/lifestyle sentiments all over the world.
Okay.
In New Zealand, you must give respect to the Maoris, the original settlers, because they are now a minority. They are struggling. In Australia, the original settlers are the Aborigines. Must give respect to them. Other than that, I can tell you, people understand that you're a visitor, and they understand that as a visitor, you're not expected to know everything. So just write what you feel and avoid something that infringes on their religious or lifestyle sensitivities. That's all. Everything else goes.
Okay. Right, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Because it
You're
requires a
welcome.
lot of preparation also, before taking any of the fam trip, especially for the writers, from the media writers and all. So as a airline or a service provider, we really need to, it, sir, more than, of course,
Yes.
a lot of preparation has to be done from the airline side, understanding meetings with them for the confirmations. And they have their own
Certainly.
expectations, what exactly they are looking forward from our side, from airlines or service.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So this was, thank you so much, sir. It was such a wonderful, the thought which you have shared with us, sir. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And indeed, it was a great, sir, lecture, and each and every word has impacted us a lot. And I hope all of our participants have really enjoyed this lecture, sir. And as Narendra sir said, sir, when university will get open, we'll take this opportunity and we'll invite you over there. And so we just want to listen to you again and again, sir. And thank you so much.
You won't put me in parda, will you?
No, sir. No, sir.
Will
That's
you
what
put me in parda?
And thank you so much, sir, for coming and delivering such a wonderful session, sir. On the behalf
it was my pleasure. It was my pleasure.
Yes, sir. On the behalf of Sir AITT, on the behalf of Amity University, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to you for coming and just giving just a wonderful deliberation, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
very
My,
much.
My all the participants, we have already shared the link for feedback in the chat box. You can fill that form. And with this, our next session will be taken by Dr. Alka Maheshwari ma'am and Dr. Parminder sir. And I would like to invite both of the professors over here. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Suman.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I would request if you can just allow participants to give their feedback for the first session. Meanwhile, we have three minutes more to start your session, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
So,
We'll do that.
Yeah, we'll start at 11:30.
Yes.
Participants
Dr.
are
Kumar,
requested to. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
just one question. Did you actually tape this talk?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All sessions are recorded, sir.
Okay. At some point, it'll be nice if I can just see the tape
Yes,
or
sir.
something.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will request my IT support team to share the link with you, sir.
Okay, that'll be wonderful.
Yeah, I will personally take care of this, sir.
Okay, I wish you a very good rest of the session.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. And we invite you, sir, for rest of the sessions as well. You can join I'll share the links of the session every day with you.
Sure.
And if you anytime can bless us again, sir.
No, that's very kind of you. And I'm always available on my phone. So
Right, sir.
anytime, any dialogue or anything, you're most welcome.
Right, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Suman, we'll start in 2 minutes time. Okay, there's still time and participants are busy filling their feedback.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sir, I'll be sharing the PPT, so I request you to make me the presenter.
ललित सर, प्रवीण सर को शेयरिंग के राइट्स दे दीजिए.
Ma'am, I'll share the PPT when we start.
It's mandatory for all the participants to fill this feedback form because this is a feedback come attendance. So if you will fill this form, then only we'll be able to get your attendance. So kindly fill it. Okay, ma'am. I think maximum students fill the form. Ending session.
Yes, we can start now, I think. Tremaine sir will be sharing the presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Shall I share it?
I think we can start now. The students must, all the participants must have finished filling up the feedback now.
Yes, ma'am. They have filled almost all have filled it.
Shall we start, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sharing the PPT. Just.
I would welcome all the participants to the second session of the second day of the Professional Skill Development course. The first session was so mesmerizing that we have all traveled the entire world with each and every word which was spoken by sir. And now we come to the topic set for the second session, cross-cultural diversity in travel writing. This topic itself is also very important when we talk of the future travel writers, because it is very important to understand the cross-cultural diversity concept. Because as travel writers, as very rightly said by all the earlier speakers, it is very important to take care of the sentiments of the locals, of the places. You have to understand their culture, their concepts, their customs before we write about them. Sir, can you please change the slide?
Yes.
When we talk of travel writing, we all know that it is one genre which has been there from times immemorial, and people to travel is like an adventure. People have traveled for different reasons, varying from official duty, pilgrimage, pleasure, from exploration, for trade, business, and over the ages, the reason why people are traveling have changed, and travel writing has become a genre. And because when we talk of travel literature, for any piece of work to be called travel literature, it is very important that it should be beyond the narrative. It is not only simple recording of events, sight and feeling, but rather it has to have value. It has to be a coherent narrative and insight. It is just not screenshots of anyone's travel diary. And when we talk of the famous travelers like Shahian, Hunsang was the Chinese Buddhist monk. He was a Chinese scholar who had traveled during the time of Harshvardhan, and he had come to study the Buddhist scriptures, and he has written books as to how he was in search of the Buddhist scriptures, and he has written about the interaction between the Indian as well as the Chinese Buddhists, and his works are really well known. If we talk about Ibn Battuta, now Ibn Battuta is a very famous traveler. His work Rihala is well known. He's a medieval traveler from born between 1304 to 1368-69, and he was even a Qadi. Qadi is a Chief Justice of Delhi also for some time, and he's a person who started traveling from a very early age of 21. Though his travel started as a concept of being traveling for Hajj for religious purpose, but he is one person who's traveled around 29 years of his life. And he believed strongly that if possible, to cover any road second time, he want to make journey to different continents, different countries. And in his life, he has traveled to more than 40 modern nations to speak about. And he's one person who has traveled on foot, by boat, on horse, on whatever the need may be. And if we go back to the work which he had published, you will find that it is a very good example. It showcases the village. What was the position of women during that time? What were the social conditions which were prevailing? The political, the economic scenario of the medieval world, and his at the later stage of his life in Morocco, when he was again a Chief Justice, scholars were assigned to him who would discuss with him experiences and learn from them. Now, when we move on further, we are aware that besides this, we have heard of Marco Polo, who traveled in search of the new lands. And we even have people who have traveled for other reasons also. And if we look from the ancient times till now, there has been many, many renowned travelers to talk about. Sir, can you please change the slide? And when we talk of the travels, which includes discussion of words that may regard as genres such as ethnographies, and when we are talking of ethnographies, we are trying to study about people, many times narratives related to the journeys made by ships, memoirs, travel logs, etc. And we understand that now if we talk to the present era, each one of us, as things have evolved over a period of years, transportation and other facilities have improved, all of us travel. And yes, it is true when we say that the travel is on different scales. There are few of us who travel within the country. There are few of us who travel across borders, and we all travel to different destinations, or maybe if we travel to the same destination, how we are going to be narrating a story, it is going to be very, very different because things change as per perception, and each person has their own individual way of looking at a particular thing, telling, and they have their own skill sets or how they look at a thing and how they write about it. But telling a story also requires many considerations. For example, as rightly said by Sir in the previous session, that even a small festival, or if we talk of a food item, something which interested you, you can write an article about that, you can focus on that, and then you can move on to the other parts. You can talk about the dish, the ingredients which are used, it is made on a particular festival, what are the religious sentiments associated, what and how do other people take it. So obviously, when you are telling a story, you have to consider many more aspects to it. You cannot just write only about that particular thing individually, and then you can move on further talking about the other aspects of the destination or related to whatever topic you have picked upon. So can you please change the slide? Now, it is very important when we talk of cross-cultural diversity to first of all understand what do we understand by culture. When we talk of UNESCO, that is United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization, which was established in the year 1945, and with the objective that we should be building a culture of peace, because it is very important. Peace should persist and should exist on the globe. And they define culture as the set of distinctive spiritual, material, intellectual, and emotional features of a society or a social group. Now, when we are talking of culture, culture is a very broad thing to be talking about, because we are not only catering to art, artworks, and art again can be performing art, it can be other forms of art also. We are not talking of literature only, but we are talking of lifestyle, the way of living together in a society, what kind of systems which exist over there, what are the traditions, customs, beliefs of that group which we are talking about. For example, if we take India, and we say that India is known as a cultural tourism destination. And when we talk of India being a cultural tourism destination, we showcase fairs and festivals, we showcase our handicrafts, we showcase our classical dances, we showcase music, we showcase the various custom traditions, and we have people coming in to study our scriptures, our Vedas. So we have got so much to offer to the tourist, and even the customs and traditions are varying in India. It is an amalgamation of so many things altogether, and every state we travel, and at times within the state also, we find there's so much of variety, there was so much of diversity, that even we Indians, when we are traveling, it becomes a new learning for us. And it is basically symbolic of attitudes, beliefs, values, norms, which are shared by a group of people in society to speak about. And when we are talking of the attitudes or the beliefs or value or norms, it would again change from one region to another region. And when we are moving, obviously, the concept of culture keeps on changing with the geographical locations also, because there are certain things which, for example, when we talk about food, and if we take our own country, India only, the food habits, they variate from one state to another state, where maybe some place you have wheat is the staple diet, and somewhere you have rice as the staple diet, and at times how it is being served, it also varies. So belief system with religion, India is one country where we have a more than one religion which is being followed, so the belief system also varies. The pilgrimage destinations also vary. So people acquire and learn culture directly and indirectly from other members of their group. So when we talk of a child being born, the child first teacher is the mother, and the family in which the child is growing, being it may be a joint family or a nuclear family. So whatever the child learns at home, the sanskars which he picks, and then from the broader segment, the society, and then from the region where he is belonging to. So this culture he imbibes through his surroundings. And obviously, when we say the cultures differed widely from one group to another, if we compare the Occident and the Orient, for example, these two regions are very vastly geographically located. If we talk of the Western world and if we talk of the Eastern world, we know that there is so much of diversity in what is being practiced in the Western world as culture, and what is being practiced, what are the norms which are being followed, what is the belief system or the attitude which is there to certain things. It all varies. So we all of us would agree to the fact that the culture differ widely from one group to another group. Sir, can you please change the slide? Now, when we talk of the concept of cross-cultural diversity, when we can very rightly said that culture is the lens through which you view the world. Whatever your belief system is, how you perceive other things, it all depends from what background you are coming from. So what you see, how you make sense of what you see, it all gives you a different perspective. Because see, if I, as a person who's been living in Delhi in an urban world, if I see a picture, maybe what I make out of it, and maybe someone else who's living in the interiors or maybe who's living in another country would make out of it, it would all differ. When we talk of cross-cultural awareness, it is very important because it not only gives people an incentive to understand their own culture, because it is very, very important for each one of us to understand our culture first. Because if we can understand our culture, we can value our belief system, we can value our traditions and customs. We should not say that, okay, we have to. At times, what happens when we have certain festivals which are being celebrated in the family, we are told that, okay, today morning you have to have a bath, be ready by this time, this is the puja which you are going to be performing. But if we are being given the reason why this particular thing is being done, it becomes easy for us to imbibe that and to understand. At times, otherwise, we are given the reason, okay, we have been doing, we never asked our parents why it is being done. We are doing it, you also do it. Then we do it just to please our parents. But still, but if we understand our own culture, we understand our own customs, traditions, we understand why particular things are being done, we would be in the right position to value it and to pass it on to the next generation, as well as to explain it to someone else who question us. And we would also look to things with the right attitude. And we would be able to accommodate at the same time. One thing, first, if we understand our own culture, and if we look at the culture of other places also. When we're looking at the culture of other places, we should understand that whatever they are doing correct in their own way. Because first of all, as an individual, I'll say what I'm doing is right. Second step would be what I am doing is right, whatever process I am doing is right, but what the other person is doing, is it wrong or is it possible? Third would be, if it is possible, this is another way of doing it. Fourth would be, because of the cultural differences, there are different ways of tackling the same thing in different manners, and everyone can be right. It is not that only I am right. And when we understand that because of the cross-cultural differences, the diversity which exists, we should be able to understand that, okay, everyone has skills and abilities, and we have to develop these skill sets. For example, when we talk of a global scenario, and now people are going, traveling abroad, working in different organizations, going in different countries, and each and every country has a different kind of organizational culture also. So we are going to country, again the culture changes, and when we shift from one organization to another organization, the culture also changes. So it becomes very important to understand the cultural diversity and able to understand as to how things work in the other culture also. So when we talk of travel literature, it again showcases a component of cross-cultural literature where you can understand if you're reading these books. For example, when Sir said when he closed his talk that people, because of COVID, they can't travel, so they are reading his books. So they are traveling through the books. So when we are travel literature also, we get to understand a lot of cross-cultural differences and diversities which are existing. For example, I'll give you one small example. What do you understand by this? This is a very small gesture which many of us use. I'll just give you examples from 4 countries. This in UK, US means okay. In Russia, 0. In Japan, it means money. And Brazil never use this because it is symbolic of insult. So one small gesture in different countries across the continents, obviously the meaning changes. And when the meaning is changing, obviously we have to be very sure as to what we are doing and where we are doing, because things keep on making a difference. So can you please change the slide? Now, if you look at the slide, this is very symbolic as to how a picture, it shows how a person is greeted. You can see how a person is bowing with the namaskar, which has taken over the globe after the pandemic, because now handshake people are too scared to do, and they are following the Indian concept of namaskar, and how this was again started in India only, and how people used to greet each other. And over a period of time, This is across the globe, but over a period of time, things are going to be changing again. So can you please change the slide? Now, when we talk of the cross-cultural differences, it can be broadly categorized into visible differences and which are below the surface. Before I talk about this, I'll give you another example. Now, all of us love to get gifts, and whenever a gift is given, a small child, the first thing which he will do is open the gift right there and then. And we all would remember our birthday parties when people, because we have been told not to open the gifts in front of the guest, so we used to wait for a long time. Okay, the small kids waiting when to open up all these gifts. In China, it is specified that you should not open your gifts in front of the guest. Whereas if we talk of France, it is okay if you open the gift in front of the guest because you can appreciate the gift in front of the guest. In Korea, again, if we talk of, it is believed that you should never wrap your gift in green, white, black, or these kind of shades. Now, another example which I'll give, in Indian homes, there are few houses where we have this concept of that the shoes should be removed before we enter the house, outside the gate. And there are many families which still follow the tradition. In China also it is followed. But if you look at the Western world, at the Occident, it is quite normal to be wearing your shoes inside the house if you are going. In China, if you are offering a visiting card to any person, first of all, nothing should be written and you should offer it with both hands. This is considered to be very good. So when we talk of the cross-cultural differences, if we talk of the visible differences, we know how people communicate. It varies from one country to another country, from one region to another region. How people react to the same situation would also vary. Because, for example, I'll give you one small example. We all celebrate Basant Panchami. And it is supposed to be the day when we worship goddess Saraswati, the goddess of learning. And when we are talking of in a country like India only, there is one part of the country where they believe that this day only all the books should be offered to the goddess and no study should be done. Another part of the country believes, no, we should study that day. It brings us good fortune. So how you react to the same festival, it again changes. For example, when we consider the period of Navratras, Navratra is one time which is celebrated, where we are praying, we are offering our rituals and offering prayers to the goddess Durga and all the other goddesses, depending on which day. One part of the country, again, people even leave eating onions and other things, and on one part of the India would offer non-veg. It is considered to be auspicious. So how things change across, it changes. Performance, interaction, socializing, teamwork. And when we talk of the cross-cultural differences, I even said that when we are going to various organizations to work, how we are working in an American firm, how we are working in an Indian firm, how we are working in an Australian firm, the expectations also change. And the cross-cultural differences become more visible when during the religious functions, also during yes, another place where you see a lot of differences where is on the university campus itself. When you get people from all across the globe coming to study, and for example, not even across the globe, we even talk from different parts of India, we come to understand the variation in culture, because over there it is quite distinctively visible in what they eat, how they dress up, how they communicate, how they sit, because the way they have been raised, it is quite indicative as to what region they are coming from. Now, if we talk of the differences which exist below the surface, so when we are talking of the beliefs, when we are talking of values, perceptions, and attitudes, expectations or assumptions, beliefs are generally based on as to religious beliefs also they can be, and as to how you've raised, what sanskars you have been given across, your beliefs and values would generate out of that. For maybe one individual, doing a certain thing is right, but the other one would be taking it in the negative sense and would say, look at crime. This is not right. I'm not going to do it. For example, I said in the beginning, if I show you a picture, the perception obviously would be varying from one individual to another. The same picture we'll be showing towards the end of the slides also would be described in a different manner by different individuals. The attitude again is individualistic. What attitude you develop, it depends on your surroundings, it depends on your beliefs, it depends on your value system, it depends on your culture also, and even your expectations. Because what expectations you keep out of the society, or for example, being a woman, being a girl child, or being a student, whatever expectations you are having. So whatever values you have imbibed, you would be having different kind of expectations depending upon from what part of the world you're coming. In India, we are always very respectful to our parents and elderlies. But in the Western world, on the other side, we are seeing that people are suing their parents also. So obviously, this is a difference which is there. What assumptions we live up with, or we grow up with, would also vary as to what are the things which we have imbibed from our society, from our surroundings, and we assume that these things are going to be expected out of us. We cannot just say, okay, this will not happen. No, but we have to go on certain assumptions also. So can you please change the slide? Now, when we talk of cross-cultural diversity in travel writing, as very rightly said, when you speak with someone, when you write about someone from another culture, you encode your message using the assumptions of your own culture. Because when you're seeing a particular thing, your understanding is based on your assumptions, your values, your system, how you have grown, upon your education also. So when you write about that, you are doing as per your perception about a particular thing. But when the person from that culture reads what you have written, he decodes your message. He would do it as per his culture, as per the assumptions, as to what value system he has grown up with. And if there is a difference, obviously misunderstanding would happen. And if there is a great difference between cultures, obviously there are much more chances for misunderstanding to happen. So if you are writing about any region, it is very important for us to understand the culture of that place, not only as to your understanding, but what is the understanding of the local over there. You should be aware about you should make your facts and figures very clear before you pen down your thoughts, put it on paper, because when we are doing any writing, we do not want to disturb the sentiments of the locals or of that region. And the difference in cultures influence significantly your understanding of reality and the communication you want to convey. You can convey, but you should convey it in a manner that you should not be impacting the others of the different culture. So can you please change this slide? So even within a major culture like Indian, we talk of distinct groups exist. There are varied norms and the behavior represents subculture. For example, in our country, when we are talking of, it is not only if we talk of different regions to speak about east, west, north, south, or central, but even state-wise we find, and besides being state-wise, we always hear, okay, you're from North India, South India. There is a distinctive difference in the culture. There is a distinctive difference in not only in the habits or the food or the dresses which they wear, how they wear, even the kind of functions which are held on death ceremonies or during weddings or when a child is born or a child name is there, this Naam Sanskaran takes place. So there is a lot of variation. And when we find that we have done effective cross-cultural communication, the true knowledge is gained by the writer. If you write about the other culture and you are able to understand that, yes, this is the right way, that means that you have attained knowledge to speak about. And when people should understand potential problems also of the cross-cultural communication, and when you're writing and you understand, you do your research, you should make a conscious effort that you have to overcome all these problems, and then you will go into writing. So when we speak of cross-cultural diversity, it is very, very important to understand the differences. It is very important to understand the sentiments of the locals. It is very important to understand the significance of the, maybe if you're covering an event or you're covering any other custom or tradition, and then only write about it. So this was my part. I would now invite Pramen sir to take on. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And thank you for very well explaining and elaborating the concept of culture and cross-cultural diversity. Basically, when we say, the travel write-ups or any write-up, so most of the time we see that, people are traveling to different destinations and they are covering some or the other part of the local cultures. As ma'am described, that the culture has so many elements. It has food habits, it has the tradition, it has the customs, it has the rituals, the fairs, festivals, religion. There are many things which are basically part of a culture. And most of the times when you see the travel write-ups, so they are somehow related to these kind of things, one or many of these kind of cultural elements. Like sir was giving in the previous lecture, in the previous session, Ahluwalia sir was giving the examples of the food habits of a people, how they greet, and how they mingle with him, and many other things. So you would realize that they are somehow related to the culture of the people, right? So when we say the write-ups, the travel write-ups, so most of the time they include the cultural aspects. As ma'am told about the cross-cultural differences, so it is not like that I want to write something about my experience, so I will be writing anything. That would not happen. That should not happen. That, whatever you want to assume, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to communicate, you will be doing that. Why? Because how you are perceiving the things, how you are seeing the things, it may not necessarily be the same. There may be differences, what you are presuming, what you are assuming, and what is the reality. And how the readers are, taking that. So we need to be very cautious in that sense that what we are writing about the cultures, that should be factual, and that should be informative, and it should also include your own experiences, but that should again be in terms of reality. So now we'll talk about the cultural features, the write-ups which are related to culture. That related to culture, what you can write, and what are the problems or the impediments you may face while explaining and describing the local culture of the people or the destination where you visit. Cultural features, as I mentioned, that most of the time when we travel to a destination, we see either the local traditions. We see the traditions like, Jagannath Puri Rath Yatra, you must have heard about this. So every time, every year, there is a time when the chariots of Lord Jagannath and his siblings, they are pulled, and there is a ceremony which takes place for a few days. Not only Indians, even the foreigners, they come to see that. And when they go back, they write about it. What they write about it? They write about the stories, the history behind that, and many other things. So this is something, which we can say that, the cultural aspect is written in the write-ups. Or you can say that, people are writing about the food habits of a particular area, like we talk about the cuisine tourism or food tourism. So what happens in this? You go to a destination or you see something which about the local food or the staple food of the area. You see the how it is prepared, how it is cooked. You search about its origin, that how it originated basically, and then you write about that. So you write about food habits. You see people, their art. I mean, you go at place, you go to Rajasthan, you see that the puppets are there. So puppets, what is the significance of puppets in their life? Why they are used, how they are made, at what occasions these puppet dances are shown. So you write about that. You write about the religion and its different aspects, including the fairs and festivals. For example, if you go to Mumbai, so for example, some foreigners are coming to Mumbai and they see that, the Ganesh festival, the Ganesh Chaturthi, I mean, that is celebrated over there. So it is something very unique for them that an idol is taken for the procession for many kilometers, then it is taken to the sea and submerged over there. So it may be normal for us, but for somebody who is from different culture will perceive it differently, will see a different kind of things. So all those features, all those write-ups, which include these kinds of informations about the cultural aspect. So they are called as cultural features. And when we write these kind of cultural features, we need to be very cautious that what we are writing, what we are portraying, what kind of information we are passing on. And at the same time, I'll show you some of the aspects wherein we can write the write-ups about the different features of the culture, what they are, we'll go through. The types of cultural features, what we can write about people, their cultures, or what you see at the destination, and how, I mean, like I was asking to Ahluwalia sir, that how from a small incident you can make a big story. You can write a story about a particular incidents or about any particular aspect of a culture of the destination. So there are so many things which you can write about, which you can rightly portray about. What are those things? The traditions. Traditions, as you will see here in the first line, it is very rightly, self-explained about the rituals, that wherever you go, wherever the man is, you'll find the rituals are there. We cannot say that we are without rituals. Like Madam was talking about different rituals which are followed in different, festivals at different times, like we have puja. So there is a particular way of having these kinds of pujas, particular time period, particular way of performing them. So wherever man lives, will live with the traditions, the practices, the customs. And these kind of practices are prevalent everywhere, across the world, in different parts of our country, in all the countries, in all the societies, these traditions are there. Now, what you can write about it, and how you will see different kinds of traditions are prevalent in different societies. I have given some example. For example, if you go to the southwestern part of Madhya Pradesh, as this area is inhabited by the tribal population. So when you go over there, you will see that there is one festival like Agoria festival, which coincides with the Holi festival for some days. And in this festival, what happens? The young people, the boys and girls, so when they go to the market, to the mart to celebrate this festival, so they choose their life partners. It is a kind of a matchmaking event, wherein rubbing the color on the face, on the cheeks of a girl by the boy, and similarly by the girl on the face of a boy, it is considered that they both agree to marry each other. So when you will be going over there, you come across that this is how the tradition is going on. So we cannot say that this tradition is outdated, it is, not good, it is bad. We cannot comment on that. But we can comment that how the culture, how the tradition is going on since ages. How and what is the significance of this tradition in their lives. And through this, you can, create some kind of appeal among your readers to go and to see that kind of festival. There are many other, unique traditions you would see. For example, healing. Here you can see, as we know, before the advent of these modern scientific, the techniques or the medicines, in all the societies, there were different systems of healing. For example, for diseases, if somebody gets disease, or for many other regions, the people, some authorized people in that society would perform some kinds of healing processes. So it is something new for you. I mean, if you go to Africa, you will see that these kinds of practices are still prevalent. And you must have seen also many of the documentaries wherein they are only indicating about these kinds of healing systems. So this is something which you can write about. And again, but you don't have to be judicious in this. I mean, you don't have to judge whether it is right or wrong, but you have to just narrate this story, your experiences, the history behind these kinds of, the traditions. Another example, sacrifices. Although in India, at many of the places, it has now been banned by the government, but it is not only about the animal sacrifices, but there are many other kinds of sacrifices which happen at different places. Not only the animal sacrifices, but other kinds of sacrifices. Sacrifice means something which they are sacrificing. So it can be anything. So there are many such kind of traditions which are still prevalent. If we talk about the social restrictions or socialization restrictions, I hope you must have heard about the Sentinelese Island in Andaman, which was recently a few years back in news. Why? Because this island so far has been, is only inhabited by the local tribes. There is no such connection with the outer world. They are not allowing people to enter inside their territory, and even the government has banned people trying to enter their territory. So social restrictions are also there. It may also be on the basis of gender. It may also be on the basis of age. So different kind of restrictions you may see as a form of a tradition in different societies. Then worshipping, different kind of traditions. I would quote one of my example. When I went to Padmanabh Swami temple in Trivandrum, so I was mesmerized to see the tradition which they were following. Like I have been to many of the temples in North India, I have been to some of the temples in South India. I've been to Padmanabh Swami temple twice, and I had witnessed a different kind of a tradition which was going on as a worshipping form. What kind of a tradition was that? There are proper set of rules and regulations to enter the temple. I mean, anybody in any dress cannot enter the temple. So there are such kind of, the regulations. And then when you enter, you are supposed to witness the worshipping, the traditional puja over there. So I saw that there is an elephant. There were a group of people, the priests. They were holding some drums, flags, these kind of things, and then they were carrying the dolly of the main god, the Padmanabh Swami, and they had a circumambulation of that main temple. So it was something very different for me that I had not seen this kind of tradition in temples. Another example, when I went to one of the temples in Madurai, I saw that small, beautiful girls, they were dancing over there. For me, as I had some knowledge about the local, the culture, some knowledge about the, classical dances. So these beautiful young girls, they were dancing in the temple courtyard. And they were dancing on that, the Bharatnatyam dance. They were performing that. As we know, this dance was originated as in the form of by the Devdasis in the temple courtyards. So it was a kind of a worshipping. They offered their dances as an offering to the gods. But for somebody else who does not know about this, would get amazed to see why the girls are dancing in the courtyard, temple courtyards. So these are some of the traditions you would see, and you can write about them. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind that what you are writing about them, what information you are passing on, and how you are passing on, whether negatively or positively. Then if we talk about habits, different kinds of habits you can write about. For example, eating habits. If you go to some of the places, you will see that some of the eating habits which you had never seen before, even you had not expected that people may eat these kind of things. So not to offend any culture, but if you go to Southeast Asia, if you go to North Asia, so you will see that people are eating something, the non-vegetarian food they are eating, so which you had not even imagined. And the seafoods, the kind of seafood. But here in India, we are traditionally, it is not the staple food we eat here. If we talk about the dressing, dressing of a particular area, so you can also write articles, the cultural features about the dressings. As you can see here, one of the women in traditional Mongolian attire. I'll show you some of the pictures also that, as we know, India is a land of diverse cultures. In every 100 to 200 kilometers, the culture varies. So as the dressing sense. So the dresses in North India varies from the South India, in Northeast India, in Western part of India. So it's the different kinds of dresses are there. So you can write dressing, on the dressing styles. You can write about the conversation styles. I would quote the recent example of the previous session wherein sir talked about the two C's which were famous. So he had a conversation with his assistant, there was a coconut tree, there was crocodiles, kind of a conversation. So here he had also written about that. I mean, the kind of conversation you can write about. If we talk about the language, so as we know that India is home to around 22 official languages. There are hundreds of dialects which are spoken. If you go to South India, if a person from North India goes to South India, so he'll not be able to understand or to comprehend what the local people are saying. Similarly, if you are going and talking to the local people in Northeast India, you will not be able to understand what they are saying. So this is how the cultural differences are there. So the language is one of the aspects of culture which you can write about. And many of the times you must have seen that the articles in general about the Hindi versus English, the North Indian language versus South Indian languages, about these kind of things. So you have to refrain yourself from being a judge of the right or wrong, but what you can do, you can narrate the story. A very interesting thing about this, I would like to give one example. Some time back, I was reading a newspaper, the article in newspaper in Times of India, wherein there is one such, we can say, tradition or the language which is used in Northeast India, Meghalaya, I guess, wherein there is one community. And in that community, the practice is prevalent where every child, who takes birth in that community is given a name with whistle. A normal name, which all of us get, a whistling name. I mean, there is a sound of a whistle which is dedicated to, which is given to the child. Kind of, we can say, we have different identity cards, different Aadhaar numbers. Like that, in that community, it is prevalent. So it was very interesting for me to read about that. And now they had requested the government to include this in intangible cultural heritage of the humanity in UNESCO. So that community has requested it because now only few people are there who are following this practice. And to your surprise that this whistling name is given by the child's mother, then it is kind of a copyright. I mean, this sound will be used for this particular person only, not for anybody else. So this kind of, languages, traditions we have. If we talk about the arts, within arts also, we have so many things to write. Like you can write about the visual arts, for example, painting. I would again quote an example of my personal trip related to this visual art. I went to Himachal in Kangra and I saw in the museum that there are some painters who are sitting over there and they're painting. And out of curiosity, we asked them that what you are painting here. We had studied about the Kangra school of a painting, miniature painting. So the artists, the painters were told us that we are painting and we are being funded and promoted by the government. Now the government is taking step to promote this. So we have been given employment by the government, and as well as this is a step to promote the culture of the place. So what they were doing, out of curiosity, when we asked, they were using a brush which was made up of squirrel hair. So for the first time we heard that out of that squirrel hair they make a brush, and then that brush they use for the painting only, because it is a miniature painting. So there is no chance of making the errors. One small error will spoil the efforts of 15 days or a month. So they were using it. So you can write stories about the visual arts, like the paintings, like the sculptures. Sculptures, if you go into the history, initially we had, the Gandhar school of that, sculpture making, and the Mathura school of sculpture making, how these sculpture, their history started, and what kind of, sculptures they make. And even I would tell you that, there are many sculptures which are very precious. Even their insurance is worth crores. And they have been put into the museums now. So you can write about these kind of sculptures, their history, their importance, their significance. Then you can write about the performing arts, the folk music, the classical music, these kind of things. One example I would give you, that how beautifully Rajasthan government, Rajasthan tourism has made a different tourism product out of their culture. The folk dances of Rajasthan, now they are promoting it at every destination. Whether you go to Udaipur, you go to Jaisalmer, you go to any other place in Rajasthan, sorry, you would see that the local artisans, the local, the dancers, the musicians, they are being promoted by the government, and as well as by the local stakeholders, the hotels, the resorts, the camps. So in every evening in Jaisalmer, you will see that the cultural nights are there, where the local, artists, the dancers, they are performing. And this is a kind of a tourism product for us now. So you can write about these kind of stories. And, there are many other things which you can write about. For example, there are less known arts like, pottery making, handicrafts making, silversmithing, glass cutting, wooden craft, etc. You can write about these kind of things as well. For example, if you go to Northeast, you would see that, the local people are using the bamboo to make some kind of handicraft. If you go to the Rajasthan, you will say that the stone cutting is being used to make some, souvenirs and make some gifts. If you go to some other places, the metals are used. If you go to some place, the wax is used, like Nainital. If you go to some tribal areas, you will see that, grass is being used to make some kind of things. So out of your travel to those places, witnessing these kind of things, these kind of practices, you can write your own articles. There are many more things within this art. When we talk about religion, now it is a very sensitive topic as well. But what it includes when you have to write about something like religion, so like the faith, the religious celebrations like festivals. Like I would give you an example. Nowruz is a festival which is celebrated in India, in South Asia, and the Middle East, many of the countries, even the Central Asia also. So now this festival Nowruz has been included as a UNESCO's intangible World Heritage Site. Why? Because of its significance for the humanity. So it has now been included as a World Heritage Site. So when you are going to somewhere where you see that people are celebrating the Nowruz festival, so you can write about that as well. When you go to a place and people are celebrating their festivals, the religious festivals, like I mentioned that the Jagannath Puri Rath Yatra, the similar kind of a celebration is also celebrated in Tamil Nadu. So you will see that how people are into such deep profound religious belief that touching only the rope of that chariot is considered to be very holy, very auspicious. And people throng and they, go over there just to see, to touch that rope of the chariot when it is pulled. So that is also something which is very important for the local people, and you are writing, you are, having the experience and writing your own experiences on that. And there are many other things related to religion. I mean, there are many food habits which are associated with the religion. There are, fairs, festivals, many other things which you can write about. You can also write about the architecture. Architecture, again, I would quote the example of the Dravidian style of a temple architecture in India. So if we are going to South India, so you will see that such beautiful mammoth, temples have been erected over there. The Dravidian style of temple architecture, I mean, one of such example, the longest corridor is there in Rameshwaram temple, where you would see more than 100 meters of the corridors are there. And very interesting thing about the Rameshwar, if I recalled it, that when you have to enter inside the temple and you have to have the darshan of the main Shivlinga over there. So before that, there is a tradition that there are 22 wells filled with water. You do not directly go to the temple and have the darshan of the main Shivalinga. Before you go through all these 22 wells, you pour some water from all of these 22 wells on yourself, and you would see people are there in the queue in all these 22 wells. For what? Just to take some water from the well and pour it on themselves. So very different thing I witnessed over there, that how people, I mean, what kind of system is there in this? So you go through all the wells, you pour some water, then you change, and then you go for the main darshan of the temple. There's something which is very interesting. So you can write about them. So also associated with the religion. So when it comes to architecture, the Dravidian style of architecture, you would see, whether you go to Madurai Meenakshi temple, Padmanabh Swami temple, Rameshwaram temple, whether you go to any of the other temples, Tirupati temples in South India, you would see that such a beautiful temple architecture. If you go to western part, you will see the Vaishara type of architecture is there. If you go in the north, you will see that the Nagar style of a temple architecture is there. One such example is the Khajuraho temple. So if you go to Khajuraho, you will see that how beautifully they have constructed those temples, and that too 1,000 years from today, and they are still surviving. So you can write about these kind of things as well. Now the point is that when you have to write the cultural features, keeping in mind the cross-cultural diversity, so how can you select a topic and how can you write about them? Although many of these things we have talked about, that these may be the prospective topics for you to write, and how do you see the differences between the people, their cultural aspects, and how do you report them? There is, this is how you can also select your topic to write about. For example, area of interest and expertise. For example, if I do not know anything about the temple architecture, now I started writing about it. Because travel writing is all about, it is an amalgamation of the scientific as well as the imagination, or the experiences, or the interviews, the conversation which you had with the local people. So it is an amalgamation of both. So you cannot be hypothetical in this sense that you are writing anything about the architecture. So whatever interest you have into, so you can choose those kinds of topics for your articles. For example, I have given you an example of architecture. So if someone knows that we have the different kinds of a temple architecture in India, we have rock cut architecture, we have mandap style of architecture, we have the Rath style of a temple architecture, we have Dravidian, Vaishara, Nagara, we have Kalinga style of architecture. So if you have some idea about these things, where they originated, what are the specifications, the features of these architectures, then you would be in a better position to explain them. Similarly, if you have interest about the performing arts, for example, the classical dances, if you go to Tamil Nadu and see Bharatanatyam is there, and if you do not know anything about the genesis of classical dances, so it will be very difficult for you to include the facts and to have some of the experiences. So that would be a bit difficult, not impossible, but it would be a bit difficult. So when you know that it was started as a practice in temple courtyards, as an offering in this century, one of the oldest dances forms, and written and composed by the Bharat Muni, and follows these kinds of things, then you would be in a better position to explain that. Then you have to think about the publisher. The publisher, where you want to send your article, for example, it is a newspaper, it is a magazine, it is something else, and the frequency and the space which they are providing to such kind of articles, and the kind of, the topics they entertain. Then you have to think for these kind of publishers, and accordingly you have to write. Then we have readership, the kind of readers, whether they are male, they are female, they are youngsters, they are old age people, they are the children, for whom you are writing. What is their interest area? So accordingly you select it. Now the collection of a material, is it only simply the description of your experiences, or is it something also a collection of the experiences as well as some facts? For example, if you're writing something, so you need to put some facts as well. So you need to research on that what kind of topics have not been covered. Like Sir mentioned in the previous session or yesterday also, take some topics which are less covered. Sir gave the example that if I go to France and write about the Eiffel Tower, so what is the meaning of writing that? Right. So you search about the topics which are untouched, which are novel, which are new, which have prospects to be covered. So you search about those kinds of topics. Then you collect related facts about them. You go to, you search through the government repositories, you search on the concerned state or national tourism board's website and their materials. Then you also include your own memory, your experiences, your interaction, your interview, the kind of conversation with the local people. So you also include these kind of things like yesterday, in one of the session, it was mentioned that can we include the local folklores, the local belief. For example, I give you an example that, I went to one of the places where the local belief is that the temple was constructed overnight by the yakshas. Practically, scientifically, it is not possible because it was constructed in 10th century. It took around some years, but because of the erosion of the outer layer, people thought that, it is not well constructed. So it might be because, in hurry it was constructed. So that kind of local folklore, the local belief is also there. So we have to also collect these kind of experiences and memories in our writings, which you can say that as per local folklore, people believe like this. Then we have other sources like you go to experts, you ask about, about things to them, their own experiences, their knowledge about them. So through all of these sources, you collect the information and you try to collect and have a collage of all these things into one writer. Now, what is the importance of this? Why we have to keep in mind the local culture, their traditions, their art, their festivals, their point of view. Why? Because when we write something, you can understand the gravity of this thing. For example, if whatever I'm telling you, is that right or not? You'll be assuming that whatever I'm speaking is right. In the same way, whatever you are writing, the readers will assume that you are writing it right. So it may not be necessarily right, which you are portraying. Why? Because of your ignorance, because of purposely you have written it. The intention may be anything. So we are not going into that. But the thing is that when you are writing something about their practices, about their traditions, about something, so it is basically including so many things, their lifestyle, their culture, their evolution, their development. And then it is conveyed to people and they will be assuming it as right. So we need to keep in mind that, whatever we are writing, especially the cultural features, they need to be authentic. They need to contain some, facts, reality, and, they are portraying some truth and some of your, real life experiences. So this much is the importance of the cultural, write-ups, which basically we can say that, which are very important when we write these kind of things. And we have to be very cautious writing about other people, about their cultures, using their narratives. So we have to be very cautious in this. Now, I would show you some of the pictures, like how you see the things, what you see and how you write about them. Like we are from different cultural background. When we go to some tourist destination, we see certain things which we have not ever seen. So how do we perceive what we think of that, and how do we then write about these kind of things? For example, when we see this picture, what comes to your mind? Different people may be assuming different things out of this. When you go or when you see this picture, so it may give different meanings to you. And it is up to you, as Madam mentioned, that we presume and assume the things as per our own understanding because of our cultural background. So different people may be assuming different things about this. So this is basically a mask dance which is performed in one of the largest monastery, the Hamis monastery in Ladakh, the Chum dance on a religious occasion in the month of June, July. So it is performed there. So there is a particular history behind this, why it is performed, how it is performed, when to be performed. So we need to understand those things, all of those things, and then make a story around this picture. When we see this, what comes to your mind? Many people may be familiar with this picture or this kind of, the maker. Many may not be aware and may be familiar with this. So how do you perceive this? What do you write about this? So this is a kind of, this is a classical dance which is performed in Kerala, the Kathakali. And you won't believe that, for the artist to get ready for this dance, sometimes it takes 5-10 hours. The decoration, the clothing, everything is on the basis of the character one is performing. And it is one of the 8 classical dances in India. One of the most beautiful classical dances, which I would say. By this picture, what comes to your mind? And I tell you that, I have used a normal picture for this festival, although you would see that people pierce their cheeks with some kind of these, arrows. They pierce it. They pierce their, tongue. They pierce some other parts of their body. I used a simple picture so that it should be conveyed to you. So when we see this picture, there is a whole story behind that. What is that? So it is basically a festival which is celebrated in Tamil Nadu or in many of these states and countries where the Tamil people reside. This is a festival, Thai Pusam, which is celebrated on the occasion when it is believed that, Goddess Parvati, when she gave spear to Kartikeya to vanquish the devil. So it is celebrated on that occasion. I was in Andhra Pradesh and I saw people are hanging on some kind of, instruments, and how they are hanging with the help of some clips which were pierced through their, back. So for the first time, I had seen such kind of things in my life, that why these people have pierced the spears and the other things through their body. So it is a belief, local belief, that, they pierce these kind of things. So this is how I told you that, what we see, how we narrate the stories about certain incidences, certain traditions, certain practices. Then if we talk about cultural diversity and travel writing, what you can write about, again, going through very quickly, going through some of the pictures through which you would be able to understand that what we can write about and how many areas, how much prospects we have to write about, keeping in mind the cultural diversity and cultural aspects. You can see here the tribal people, their food habits, I mean, what kind of food they are eating. You can see that, at different places, people have different kinds of food. You can write about their origin. You can write about their recipe. You can write about the practices. You can write about their vessels, what they utensils, what they use. You can write about the instruments which they use to eat it. So many things, so many stories you can narrate about that. You can write about the attire of different places, like you must have seen that people are going to Kashmir. So ladies, the women, they are wearing the local attire and having the pictures clicked. So you can write about the attire of the place. You can write about the lifestyle of a people, their houses. Here you can see the houses which you will generally see in different parts of the country, especially in India. So these kinds of houses in general, you would see are constructed. So here in the last picture, I would tell you that, as this picture, you can see the house from Uttarakhand. So like there is one man who has got 4, sons. So then this house is extended and a nearby house is constructed like this, and it gets in an arrow. It gets in a sequence. So the whole family, the whole lineage is residing at one place. So these kind of, houses and architecture you would see in different places, and you can make your own stories and write-ups. You would see that people are making the handicrafts out of, the wood, out of metal, out of the grass or the bamboo. They are making the handicrafts. So there is a niche tourism. Those who are from tourism background, they will be better understand this, that niche tourism, when you go to places and keeping in mind a different aspect, not going to see the famous tourist destination, the monument and this, you are going particularly to see a particular kind of a thing. For example, you are going to see the wooden craft of that area, that how they are making it, how they are making the metal crafts, how they are using the other things. So you can write your write-ups on these topics as well. The festivals, the elephant festival, which is very famous in Kerala, the Lama festival, the Baisakhi. So if you go to any place, you can see these kind of things and you can make your own stories out. At last, as we have talked about the prospects, the areas which you can write about, there are some advice, although the travel writers, they follow many of their own guidelines, regulations, but there are some advices that, you need to understand the local culture from their point of view. When you are an outsider, you are going at a destination just for a day or for few hours, you have seen something, you have cooked up your own story. It should not be like that. You should understand their own perspective here, their own point of view for that particular event, tradition, or festival. Then you will better understand what is the existence of this particular practice. You need to respect all cultures and their special character. I mean, if you go to a tribal area, if you say that, what you are eating here, this is not something which is worthy. So it should not be like that. You should be respectful to their practices, to their attire, to their language, to their food habits, to whatever, you see over there. Like in the previous session, Sir has traveled to so many destinations. So the advice which he had also given, that you should be respectful. You should be gentle to the local community. And you should not hurt local sentiments. That sentiments can be related to their religion, can be their belief. So you should not, hurt these kind of sentiments. Then you try to spread the positivity, and you should not try to distort the history, willingly or unwilling. If you do not know about anything, so refrain from including those things or writing about those things, but don't give a wrong impression about a destination or incorrect information, I would say. Therefore, this is a region that, Government of India gives a certification and licenses to guides to portray history and archaeology of a particular area to the tourists. Everybody cannot have that authority or right. So, not to distort the history, the identity of any place. And this is what I would recommend, because whatever you are writing, it may create an appeal for a destination, or it may distort the image of the destination. Like people won't be liking to travel to those places because of reading your articles, because of your articles, they may have some kind of a wrong impression about that community, their culture. So you need to understand it from their own perspective and write it accordingly, having some experiences, memories with facts and factual information. With this, thank you all of you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pramein sir and Dr. Alka Maheshwari ma'am. I think this was very elaborated presentation on managing the cross-cultural diversity in the travel writing, because this has been a very important topic or important aspect when you go for travel writing, because you have to visit many places. Each place has a different identity. So it is very, very important that your identity is you keep the identity or you respect the area. So I would request if there is any question from the participants. Is there any question from the participants? Let me just have a look at the chat box also. There was one question for you, sir. Socialization restrictions are of positive or adverse impact. Kindly enlighten. I mean, there was some question from Navneet Verma, one of the audience. And there's one more question coming up from participant Harsh Gupta. So the first question which comes up to you, sir, it says that socialization, I didn't get the question actually. Or how can we maintain a balance between writing about people's culture and not offending them about their rituals and culture in travel writing?
So I would start with this second question, sir, wherein it was mentioned that how to write without offending the local culture. See, when we say something, we cannot be a judge when we see some culture, some traditions of a particular place. Why? Because that practice is there since ages. I mean, that group, that community has been following these kind of practices since ages, since time immemorial. So we cannot say suddenly that, okay, now we have developed, we have their scientific things, and with us now these things are, wrong. Yes, there may be certain aspects of those practices which may not be good related to the present condition. But if we talk about our own culture, so we have also relinquished many of the practices which we thought that they are of no use now. Like if I give the example of a sati pratha, so it was there in the till 19th century. So now we are done with that practice. We are not no more following it. So there are some kind of practices which may be there, which you may think that it is something, but you don't have to offend people. What you can do when you are writing about it, you need to write it from both the perspective. That you have been to that place, people who are following this, they have these kind of beliefs. You need to portray and you need to explain that. Second thing, yes, sorry.
Yes, sir, carry on, sir.
The first question, which was about the social restrictions. So it is up to the local people, local society, what they like, what they do not like. For example, today we have seen the example of the carrying capacity, right? The economic carrying capacity, social carrying capacity, economic carrying capacity. People of a place may think that, because of these people, our culture, our society has been, now they are making it worse. So it is, I mean, up to them that what kind of practices they have. When it comes to social restrictions, so it may be on the basis of the gender and, on the basis of the age groups. Like we have seen in many of the societies, women are not allowed for this. Still, this practice is there in many of the countries and many of the regions. So we do not question that.
All right, sir. I think now it's time to take the feedback for the second session, sir. So all the participants, please note down that I have shared the feedback for this session once again in the chat box. Please go through, please fill the feedback, and then we'll close the session here. I would like to thank my colleague, Dr. Alka Maheshwari ma'am and Dr. Pramen sir for this wonderful session, and hope to have such deliberations in future as well. Now I would request all participants to fill up the second session's feedback. The link has been shared in the chat box. And then we have a lunch break from 1 to 2. And at 1:50, we will resume the session for our third speaker of the day. Again, we have very wonderful speaker coming up. He is a senior travel writer, Mr. Anil Mathur. So he will talk about the sense of place, people, facts, opinions in writing travel articles. So do join us on in that session. Till then, thank you very much. We will meet again at 1:50. From our side, it will be open. You can join, but the session will start sharp at 2 o'clock. Everyone, please fill up the feedback session.
1 hour, 1 hour, 15 minutes, just like this, sir.
Yes, sir. PPT is
Arun, we can see PPT. Kindly put on a slideshow mode, on presentation mode. Sir, is it visible to you, sir?
Yes, it is there on slide.
Sir,
थोड़ा
PPT is
हल्का हो
visible.
गया पहले it was louder.
Sir, PPT is visible to you, sir.
हाँ?
आप PPT देख सकते हैं सर, जो शेयर किया अभी आपको दिख रही है सर?
Echo हो रही है. Can you come again?
Sir, PPT, is it visible to you? Dr. Aruditya have shared your PPT, sir.
नहीं, PPT is not visible to me. वो तो आप उसमें लगा दीजिएगा. Vikramjit ji, so he can put it on the screen whenever he likes.
Sir, yes, sir. Dr. Aruditya have shared.
Fine, fine.
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Visible, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like your punctuality. You are people very punctual.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Dr. Narendra Kumar, sir.
Okay, sir. Sir, it's 2, so shall we start, sir?
Yes, Suman, we are always on time, so we can start now.
Okay. A very good afternoon to everyone. So we have another session with Anil sir with us. So if we talk about the educational qualification of Anil sir, he's a MA Political Science from University of Delhi. His professional qualification, he has an advanced editorial course, Thomson Foundation Journalist in Europe, Paris, 1982 to 83. He has also experience as a research associate, Press Institute of India, New Delhi, editor, Kul Youth Magazine, sub-editor, The Hindustan Times, senior correspondent, The Hindustan Times, 1977 to 86. Jammu correspondent, The Hindustan Times, 1998 to 2005. India correspondent, Travel News Asia, 1979 to 1999. India correspondent, The Indian Hong Kong correspondent, Hotel and Food Services. As well as he has written for Travel Talk, Interface, Travel Daily India. He has delivered many guest lectures in tourism institutes too. So with this, sir, I'll take this opportunity and will like to invite you for your kind deliberation, sir. Sir, please.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Firstly, let me tell you that I'm very happy to be addressing such a, well, I would say very young and enthusiastic students who are keen to learn. And the whole game of life, and especially in travel and tourism, the game is to keep learning on a daily basis, even not on daily basis, on a hourly basis. And fortunately, this is one line where you get an opportunity for this very regularly. Now, over the last 2 days, you have heard a lot of very bright lectures or speeches. And I myself was sitting through most of them, and I really enjoyed them. But let me start my presentation with a slight caution, a warning. You see, you must have received, I mean, all of us heard a lot of praise and good things about the travel writing. Now, let me start away with a caution saying that, you see, we are tending to get more and more similar. When we talk of places, each city is trying to copy another city. Now, I feel that this is wrong for the tourism angle. Because if Jaipur and Delhi are similar, why would you go to Jaipur? If Paris and London are similar, why would a Londoner go to Paris or Paris fellow go to London? So you getting uniformity in tourism is not a good thing according to me. Because the whole idea of travel is to see and meet different people. During course of my lecture, I will narrate you some incidents which become your memories because they are so different from others. So, and as I say, because of my young age, I will be talking more of experiences. I mean, rather than at the academic level. So let me start with one experience since we are talking of places. You see, place is one place. There's a place near Geneva called Lausanne. Now there I had gone to give a lecture, and at the reception, some hotel receptionist met me, and I offered her a very donut when I had gone from my sightseeing trip, and she was thrilled to have one. Then, as we were talking, I gave her another donut, and she was again thrilled. So then I went to my room. Nothing, that's all. In the evening, somebody came to see me. And this lady, the receptionist, told him some stories about me. And when he came up to my room, he said, "Sir, what did you do to our receptionist?" I said, "I don't think I did anything. I didn't even touch her. I was at a very safe distance." So he said, "No, she's saying that she has not met such a good tourist ever." Then I said, what could be the reason? The reason was simple. My 1 minute talk with her and offering her donuts of, you can say, 1 rupee or 2 rupees or whatever it is. But that itself, one incident moved her so much that she called me one of the best tourists that she has met. Now, this memory I cannot forget, and she won't forget. How I say that? Because after that, I wrote an article on this. It was called Encounter in Lausanne. And that article was published in Hindustan Times. So after that, no less a person than the ambassador of Switzerland called me. He says, "Mr. Mathur, we read articles every day, but it's very seldom that we are reading such an article." Oh, so this example, I hope I'm able to convey you the human and the human touch of travel and tourism. Now, so this is one part. I mean, these kind of incidents I can repeat 100 times, but since the time is limited, I think this one incident should convey you what I'm trying to say. And this is at the international level. Same incidents are happening at local level, which unfortunately we tend to forget. For example, my going to, say, for example, in Neemrana, or going to Corbett, or going to Casino Group in Kerala. All these are made of memories. Now, the one point I would like to right away say here is that we are making a mistake if we are concentrating only on English language. Please do not think that the world is composed of English. There are so many people, non-English speaking, including Hindi, of course, and Tamil, Telugu, Malayali, Kashmiri, Dogri, who are travelers now. And most of them have good money also to spend, and they're keen to see the other places there, which are there to see. So here I must give you the example of a 70-year-old man barefoot. He had gone to Patni Top, barefoot, 70-year-old in a dhoti. He said, "I just wanted to see what is Patni Top. I had not seen snow in my life. He said, why are you barefoot? He said, doesn't matter. So he came back. Then we all of us got together and got him a pair of chappals. And then he came with us. And he really enjoyed, if I may use that mode, he enjoyed that trip more than we probably even we did. So this is the whole concept of travel journalism is reflected in these kind of stories, which are bound everywhere. Secondly, I must tell you, please do not think that in India is composed of rich people. Foreign countries have offices in India. All of us know that. And what is happening now is that these officers, after much research, they are inviting travel agents, writers, and other people, French people, to come to their countries and cities. For example, recently I had the fortune to go to Malaysia, and they had invited 7 journalists from Telugu. Inadu. Have you heard of Inadu? A lot of people may not have heard of Inadu. Inadu is a very famous paper from Hyderabad. 7 people they invited and spent money inviting 7 journalists and photographers to Malaysia for 1 week is not small money. But they were so confident that by inviting 7 journalists from Telugu papers, they will be able to generate traffic to Malaysia from Andhra Pradesh and other places. So this is their research. I mean, they do research. It's not a waste of money. The other point which we have been ignoring is that we are ignoring people like, if I may use the word, auto drivers. Now, auto drivers may not be flush with too much cash like a shopkeeper, but they have the will to travel, and they have the money. So if all of us have to sometimes use public transport, and if you see these auto walas, most of them are reading Jagran and Amar Ujala. They're not reading Times of India or Hindustan Times. So states and the countries have to keep that in mind. I know one of the very senior officers from Kashmir. He was very keen. He says, मैं Bengali papers में जरूर advertise करूंगा. Similarly, Kashmirios को जरूर बुलाऊंगा, because Bengalis want to travel. Gujarati want to travel with money. Bengalis want to travel even without so much money. So he made it a point. And later on, this fellow, he's still involved in tourism. He became the Secretary of Tourism for Government of India. And he has written a lot of books on travel and tourism, both professional and destination. So this example, again, I'm giving you, because languages have importance. Now, the first point I started with is similarity. We have to guard against everything becoming similar. If Gujarat and Maharashtra food is the same, why would a Bombay wala go to Pune? So why would a Jaipur fellow go to Ahmedabad? Why would a Bengali go to, say, for example, go to Bangalore? These are because we are all wanting experience. Now, all of us sitting in this panel today, including this so-called writer, we are all always watching, looking for new places and new experiences. I can tell you one word: travel is nothing but experience. And that's why people, I met a lady who was crossing to France from England with a paintbrush and a board. And finally, her mission was to get away from her children. Can you beat? Here we are trying to get, because she says, no, I'm fed up my children. I want to paint in the countryside of England by being away from my children. So that is also experience. I mean, some people try to get to their family, some people try to get away from their family. So both are tourists. So this is the whole fun of this line. There's so much of variety that you tap and everything. I mean, experiences wise, like for example, taxi drivers. Some of the most interesting persons I met are taxi drivers or guides or the hotel waiters. I remember in Frankfurt, I was trying to see Gandhi, the Gandhi movie. And I saw a person hailing for me. Hey, Mr. Mao, hey, young Indian, please come. I said, yeah. He says, you're from India? I said, yeah. He says, I just wanted to tell you that I've seen Gandhi. You know, see, now he was very keen to convey his just this basic information that he's aware that Gandhi had India links and that he had seen the movie. Similarly, I can imagine my excitement when I first went to England. I saw not the Queen, but Queen's sister, Margaret. She was roaming around in the near the Oxford Street with just one guard. Can you beat it? Can you imagine a situation like here in India? I'm sorry to say no. Just one guard was with her, and I mean, I was very excited just to see her from a distance. I'm not that I wanted to have a chat with her, although that would have been also very good. But so that is my experience. I remember this was more than 30 years ago. Similarly, when I went to do a piece on the film industry of Cinecittà, you know what is Cinecittà? No, Cinecittà is the Bollywood of Italy, film industry of Italy. Now I knew that Gina Lolo Brigera lives there. So when I gone there to do the article, I made it some research to find out where she lives. And so I went and almost, you can say, rang the bell at her house. And she welcomed me with open arms. Because I told her that we have grown up with seeing Italian movies. So these examples are what travel writing is about. Now, travel writing has, as you must have been discussing, is so many. One is a place, and there I say place is important, but uniformity will harm tourism. Nobody. So we have to guard this. Then one very important thing is facts. Now, you see, facts by definition are dull. How many people went to see Hawa Mahal? How many people went to Taj Mahal? These are basic facts which may or may not convey everything to everyone. But they are important from the policy makers. So you have to guard against facts being used properly. They have to be used in an intelligent manner rather than in a just for a figure. So facts are very important, and but facts have to be linked with in intelligent manner to this, because you see, one point which we always forget is that travel journalism has to be involved in policy making. Like you must have heard of carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is one item which we have ignored. But in most of the world, people are not promoting tourism, they are demarketing tourism. Say, don't come to my place, don't come to Versailles, don't come to pyramids. Why? Because they think that the tourists are harming. So what we are saying is that the ill effects of tourism have to be guarded by the travel fraternity. And now it's only now that this topic has come up in India. In several countries, cars are not allowed, for example. In a lot of the important cities of the world, cars are not allowed to go because you're harming the environment. Similarly, to see the pyramids, you have to go there early morning. Now, to be registered to go, otherwise you can't go, can't see the pyramids. Now, this is a very sophisticated way of marketing also, and also demarketing. Some destinations try to create an impression that they are so valuable that they request you not to come today, come tomorrow. I mean, do your planning. So now another very important thing is opinion. You see, opinion as it is a thing like it is free. I mean, I can have opinion about whether Taj Mahal should be open 24 hours a day or not. You may think it should be open only by fine. I know people in Ladakh who say that Ladakh monasteries should not be open for the whole year. They should be only open for a while, because the more the tourists go there, the more harm they'll do to the culture. Now, these are issues which have to come up in what our broad subject of travel writing and destination travel. See, destination travels का ये है कि destination travel is not a umbrella body. Destination travel means for example, Katra. Katra, everybody has been to Vaishno Devi. Now that's a destination, but it has to be guarded. You cannot have again. There's also a debate on whether how long should the Vaishno Devi Mata shrine be opened. I mean, there are views which says if the present trend continues, a visitor who is coming from Kerala or Maldives or Mauritius, he will get 10 seconds to see to have darshan of Mata. Now you have spent so much money and time to come there, and if you are feel cheated, so these are views which have to be weighed very carefully, and it's a matter of debate whether we have devoted enough time to this very important segment of tourism or not. I personally feel we are not, because here again writing is important. If we leave everything to policymakers, you see now at the moment another issue is bothering all of us is Lakshadweep and Andaman. How much tourists should be allowed to Lakshadweep and Andaman? What should be their cost structure? What should be the time period of stay? Now those issues have to be sorted out at a very, very practical level, so that we don't make the blunders which some places have made already all over the world. So I was recently, some time back, invited to China, and there the topic was demarketing, not marketing. 3 days ka conference mein 1.5 day was devoted to talking against tourism. Now, for you and me, it may sound very funny because we are dealing with a subject which is to promote tourism. And here is a conference being organized by a very prestigious international organization just to say how to curb tourism or control, so that the ill effects of tourism are kept to the minimum. So, I mean, this again I'm pointing out to emphasize that tourism is not a unhindered blessing. It can have a lot of minus points. So, but it depends on us and the policymakers and the writers, because don't leave everything to the planning commission or now what is called Niti Aayog just to decide. Yes, we will have 1,000 rooms in Hardwar, or we'll have 500 rooms in Vaishno Devi, or we'll have so many rooms in Lakshadweep. I mean, in that context, we have to see Maldives, for example. They have played a very good game. I mean, very good planning. They have tried to control the destination marketing by calculating that how will so many tourists affect the ecology. Now that is a buzzword for all of us: ecology, environment, ecotourism. These are words which are already in fashion, but it should not be only fashion. It should be implemented at the ground level. Now there again, as a so to say thinker and a observer of the thing, not enough is being done on this point. So this that. Now see, again it boils down to why do people travel? Why do you go to Vaishno Devi? Why do you go to Amarnath? Well, one answer would be to see a new place. Now, if you want to see a new place, then that place you better be new. Otherwise, what's the difference between, say, Mussoorie and Shimla? Mussoorie and Shimla should have different attractions for the visitor, and local economy should gain. another very neglected area as far as India is concerned. And as I said, I started by saying that I'm not going to be pleasing everyone by saying everything is very good. We have not done enough to promote carrying capacities. That's why there are almost, if I may use the word, riots in Mussoorie and Shimla during summer months because there is no water. अगर वहां 20,000 आदमी पहुंच गया and there is no water, what will happen? Kulu Manali. So these are points not only for the saying yeah, we should have a 3-star hotel or 4-star hotel. These are points which have to be discussed at a very broad level. And you see, up down and going from down up from upar se niche. Now we have been planning from top to bottom. Actually, it should be the other way. The village panchayat fellow should tell the planners or the money walas, hey, look here, we need a 3-star hotel or a dharamshala in this place, not a 5-star hotel. The 5-star or multinational company should not dictate the terms of what kind of destination we have to promote in a particular place. There again, very much caution and care is needed at all levels, because now you see, all of us are unfortunately going through this ill effects of pandemic, and as you know, so many hotels have had to close down. Now it's a matter of debate and discussion that could such a situation have been avoided if we had done better planning. Not today and yesterday, but maybe 10 years back, 5 years back. Now, these are issues which have to be discussed the whole day. So as students or players of this tourism industry, it is our duty to keep a watch on the trends of uniformity in cities, if possible, act as a brake. Now you may say that journalists ka kaam nahi hai to put brakes, but I think yes, it is. You're not exceeding your brief by warning the powers that be. Look here, if you open 100 hotels in Manali today, there'll be chaos. So, and if a good journalist, good travel writer can highlight this point through his or writings or his or her visuals, photographs. Now, photographs is a very, very powerful mean, as much powerful, or if not more, as words. And now the new trend is of bloggers and you can say broadcast and filmmakers. Over the last few years, I think more films have been made on tourism related subjects than probably on romance, which is good, I think, which is a good trend, because we have to be always alert on this point. Yeah, now, I must come back to facts. You see, we have to, there's no doubt that we must have facts. But if the facts end there, then they defeat the purpose. Merely a dry fact कि Kulu में 10,000 कमरे हैं, that by itself has no meaning. What we have to say is whether 10,000 is more or less than what is required. Is there enough water for 10,000? Is there enough transport to reach there? Is there enough electricity? Because I mean, all of us are when the summer holidays start, all of us are familiar with the headline: and no water in Shimla, no power in Mussoorie. Now that is a very unfortunate state of affairs, and that is a result of our myopic planning. So myopic planning has to give place to macro planning and intelligent implementation. Yeah, then I was talking about the auto driver. It will be our very great folly if we ignore the vendors, shopkeepers, auto drivers, and taxi drivers in our travel planning. As I gave you example, the lot of foreign countries who have offices in India. I'm sure you know how many countries have offices in India. Some countries have more than one office, because they know Chennai is as important as Delhi. Don't forget that everybody has come to realize that Delhi is not the end of the world, nor is Bombay. The places like Ludhiana, Jalandhar, Amritsar, who are generating revenue for the country. And the people, for example, the Telugu people realize that there's a Bapu temple in Kuala Lumpur, which is very popular with the Telugu speaking people. Although you have to go through a lot of hundreds of steps, but they found, yes, there are people who are wanting to spend that money and that time to go up the hills, because it is like being, say, Tirupati in India. They want to see the Tirupatis of other countries also, and that is giving them memories. And now what has happened is that the range of tourism products has become so much that people, instead of writing only on Taj Mahal, you have to write on the wildlife, for example. Now, wildlife is another misused word. Wildlife does not mean only seeing tigers. Now, we have got the unfortunate impression is that unless you see a tiger in Corbett, your experience is a failure. Now, I feel this is a lot of nonsense, because it is a whole experience of going, listening to the chirping of the bird, listening to the cool breeze. I mean, enjoying the cool breeze, and monkeys. And so if you, in that bargain, you see a tiger or a leopard, that is a bonus. But a trip should not only be guided by such a trip, by the zeal of just seeing a wildlife. Wildlife is important part, and now a lot of countries are devoting a lot of time, but they are making it a point to give it a whole experience. And here, our another neglected area is since we are dealing today more with travel writing, is the concept of the fight between nature and man. How many tigers or elephants have fallen prey to a human greed, whether for the tusk or whether for the skin or whatever it is. I mean, and that takes years, because don't forget that Hinduism and all other religions say that man is not the only man on earth. The animal kingdom and the birds, they have equal right to live. In fact, if not more than human beings. So we have to be very sensitive to their needs and what they want. I mean, people these days, a lot of people are asking, what did you do during the pandemic? Now, one answer which is very widespread and very well, that I enjoyed seeing more and more birds. How many of you devoted time to see birds in the normal days? You are so busy in the rat race that you did not have time to devote. And now you're saying, yeah, how does a कोयल differ from a crow? You see, how is the कोयल का sound कैसा होता है, crow का, you know, I mean, so this is I will say this is a victory for the other kingdom, that the human being has taken time off to recognize that yes, we also exist and we have equal right to exist as you. So if I were to sum up, I would say people and places and opinions all are important, but in that order. Opinions can have a second place, because it is the people of a place and the place itself which make for positive tourism. Otherwise, let human beings involved, that tourism is going to create more harm than gains. So we have to be guard, because if all of us know that tourism is a very healthy and very good thing, but with great caution. So I think with that, I'd like to end, or if you have any questions, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, sir, for your great deliberation on the topic, facts, and people. I think this is very important aspect of travel writing, because a lot of people they miss these things, and I'm sure that when they hear about all these things, they will take a guidance on this and will write what exactly is required. And sir, moving on further into this, I have some questions for you, sir.
Please, welcome,
Some,
welcome. I
yeah.
always like questions.
Yeah, sir, there is one question that you spoke about dealing with over tourism. Like you said that many destinations in the world, they are saying no to tourism or no
Yeah.
to tourist. Like we saw in the Venice, where people in their houses, they have pasted some placards saying we don't want tourists.
Yeah.
Sir, the question is, how can we deal over tourism in India? Because carrying capacity is also important, as you mentioned in Shimla and in Mussoorie and many hill stations. So how can we deal with over tourism in India?
You see, we have to be. Are you through?
Yes,
Are
sir.
you through?
Yes,
You
yes, sir.
see, this is very, Kumar Saab, you have raised a very important point. India, you see, unfortunately, I mean, we don't like to admit we are basically largely sometimes indisciplined people, unfortunately. I mean, I'm not a Gora, but so, so we have to make, ensure that some discipline and some rules are followed, because the consequences of not doing so are much greater. I mean, for example, a simple thing like odd even. Supposing you say the cards with even number today will not be go to Mussoorie tomorrow. They will go day after.
Okay.
आप तो right हो जाओगे नहीं हम we are living in a democracy नहीं why you know we will make it an issue. हमारा democracy है, हम equal हैं, हम free country हैं, you know, we will. So but I won't do that if I realize कि मुझे वहाँ पानी भी नहीं मिलेगा. So a bit of discipline and control with good policy planning. You see, हमारा क्या ना, even at the policy level we have miserably failed, because we have not been able to decide whether we need a 3-star hotel or 4-star or 5-star. इस पे debate चल रहा है 40 साल से. So unless we are clear, and how many beds, like you see, Maldives has been very successful. They say 1 island, 1 resort. बात खत्म. Here, have I answered your some question? No. Please.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think the destinations are failing to calculate their carrying capacity, and even no such policy has been created by any of the governments, either it is the
No.
state governments or the central government, where they can talk about the carrying capacity of a destination, and accordingly they can design their policies or
No.
make their strategies.
Yeah, sorry. See, this is what this brings us to our main topic, which is travel writing. Now, it is a duty of travel writer also to repeatedly say this point.
Yes, sir.
To point out to the transport Bhavan that look here we are failing. Manali does not need 100 hotels. Manali only needs 50 hotels. If the travel writer can say कि I did not have water for 4 days, I collapsed there, तब वो जिसके policy makers के दिमाग में जाएगा.
So I think that the seriousness should be from all stakeholders.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Sir, there's one more question from the audience itself, sir. It says, like you mentioned that Taj Mahal or many other destinations should not be open for 24 hours. But when we see the local bodies or local business, they say that Agra should be open for 24 hours, like Taj should be open for 24 hours to boost tourism. Now, what's your take on this,
Very
sir?
good
Should
question.
it be?
Kumar साहब, जिसने भी ये पूछा उसको thank करिए, and I thank you, because this is one topic very close to my heart. Now let me tell you, Kumar साहब, that this topic came up during when the COVID में बंद किया था. You will be surprised that even within the hotel lobby of stakeholders of Agra, there is two views. One segment says, no, we should be very cautious. and not open till there is no COVID ill effect. Now others says the COVID, they say the hotels are not responsible for COVID. So why are you penalizing us? So this again is a debate which has to be compromised. So they did strike a compromise कि थोड़ा दिन खोला, but then again some people say नहीं वो एक दो केस हो गया तो बंद कर दिया. So this is I mean, if you interview, which I did, 20 hotelers, 10 would say limited opening, 10 would say total close. So these are our prices of democracy.
Yes, sir. Because we live in a democratic country, and everyone feels that being in the democratic country, we can raise our voices.
Yes.
But sir, means because you are the expert of this thing. So what's your opinion? Should it be for 24 hours or should it be only for few hours?
24 hours is out of question. It should be, because you see, don't forget, the 1 लाख जो वहाँ का पोर्टर है, 1 लाख जो वो है फोटोग्राफर्स है, you are depriving them of रोटी कौन देगा आपका? कोई ब्यूरोक्रेट तो नहीं देगा ना, रोटी तो उसने खानी है ना. So that अगर वो, if he turns anti-tourism, that will be the worst scenario for tourism. A writer may write something, it may have less effect, but a person who is being affected by a photographer or a rickshaw puller or a handicraft seller, if he is affected, he'll turn about. Now, I hope you are aware, I mean, this questioner is aware that at the time of the Mathura refinery, there was a lobby saying that you remove Taj Mahal, don't remove the refinery. Can you believe?
Yes, sir.
I mean, जो दुनिया की सबसे iconic building monument है, people have this does it not mean that they wanted Taj to be removed? This shows the height of frustration, height of desperation. कि ताज हटा दो, हमारे को तो पेठा बनाने दो, हमें तो दाल बाउंड बनानी है.
Yes, sir. And truly you said, sir, because I have just read somewhere that there are 5 million people directly employed by Taj Mahal only.
Yeah.
And I'm not counting the indirect numbers, but this is the direct employment being given by only Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
The 5 million people are getting job. So there's one more question from the audience. It says, because you said that the young generation should also write about demarketing of tourism.
Yeah.
Because you were in some conference in China and then you heard about demarketing of places. Now, when young writers, when they write, they want to get the audience for their writings. Now, if they start demarketing of tourism, talking about demarketing of tourism, will they get the audience, sir?
No, you see, we have to be very clear what is the role of a journalist. A journalist is not a PRO of Taj Mahal. We are not PR of the Dalmont. We are not PR of the Petha. We are PROs of the country or the destination. So it is just demarketing जब हम कह रहे हैं, it does not mean, it is our view that a bit of demarketing will help tourism in reducing the adverse impact of tourism.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I think there is one more. I don't understand whether it is a suggestion or question. It says carrying capacity is most important for tourism sector, and there is a question mark. Yes, of course. I think carrying capacity is very important for tourism sector. And sir has also mentioned in his deliberation that destinations need to understand the importance of carrying capacity, and they must fix up. Otherwise, there'll be people staying in the cars with no water, no washroom facility in the morning. So this we have seen in Shimla and in many hill stations in last few years, where people have could not get the basic services during their stay, and then they finally started blaming the destination. Instead of blaming themselves because they moved into a big number, instead of blaming themselves, they started blaming the destination.
Tirupati, the people start coming days in advance. queuing for the Balaji.
Yes, sir. Right, sir. Sir, there is one question from one of my faculty colleague, Dr. Pramendra, and he has a very good understanding of heritage tourism, and he talks about the monuments. So
Yeah, yeah,
he has some questions, sir. Pramendra, sir,
yeah,
over
yeah,
to you,
very
sir.
good.
Sir, good afternoon.
Thank you.
So
Hello.
when it comes to the sense of opinion, I mean, local people may have different kinds of opinions towards any kind of thing. So while writing about these kind of things, so how to take into considerations the opinion of all these different people who are having different sort of the opinions related to anything.
Very good, Singh sir. You see, firstly, let us be clear. As today we are basically talking as travel writers and journalists. Now we are not advocates of anybody. See, we have to give a balanced view. See, now if the say, what was the basic question you had?
So it is about the people, the local people. They are having different kinds of opinions. So
You see now
when they
again.
write,
Now this is a very good question. Just like the Agra lobby of pro and anti tourism, local people भी double हैं. अगर आप इस वक्त वृंदावन में या हरिद्वार में वोटिंग करो फॉर एग्जांपल और यू टेक अ सैंपल कि लोकल पीपल चाहते हैं या नहीं तो वो आई टेल यू द एग्जांपल ऑफ लद्दाख आई गेव यू आई थिंक कि लद्दाख में देयर इज अ लॉबी हु सेज दैट द मॉनेस्ट्री शुड बी ओपन longer period. Longer means because वहाँ 2 महीने को खुलता है, July, August. Now there are people who say, it should be open more. But there's a very strong lobby which has members from the very leading families. They say, no, thank you. Because जितने आप ज्यादा लोग दिल्ली से जाओगे, पटियाला से जाओगे, लुधियाना से जाओगे, वो हमारी monasteries को नुकसान करोगे. So unless we can ensure that nobody is damaging the culture, because if a monastery of Ladakh is lost, it's lost forever. You cannot rebuild it like a hotel, like a train. So local people have to be taken into confidence, and you have to find a biomedia. Therefore, same with fare, for example. The local Ladakh people did not want lower fares. So, अब हम लोग कहते हैं कि भाई let me go cheaply to Ladakh or let me go cheaply to Goa, but they say no. If you make the fare higher, lesser people will come. Therefore, there'll be less harm to our culture. So again, this is a please.
Yeah, sir, as a travel writer,
Yeah.
I mean, what responsibilities or what roles can they play when it comes to degradation of the culture, degradation of the monuments, overcrowding, these kind of things?
You see, very vital, because you see, awareness जो एक word है ना, awareness is very important, but we have not made aware. Now, if you see 100 photos of garbage in Badrinath, then UP tourism, no, sorry, Uttarakhand tourism, because you forget now UP or Uttarakhand. So you are from where?
Uttarakhand always.
वही तो मैंने कहा. So Uttarakhand, you are fair. So Uttarakhand का जो है वो उनका they will be slightly affected. They will have a impact. Similarly, the policymakers of Transport Bhavan here, where the Ministry of Tourism is located, they will also try to say, let me involve some NGO or some OSM to improve. They may have a separate budget, but you see, unlike the Ganga budget,
Right.
crores have been spent. But now your next question, and rightly so, should be, what has happened to that money?
Yes.
Have we had an impact? Is Dal Lake any cleaner? I mean, that can be a question mark. Or is it as bad as ever? You have just plowed the French money into it or World Bank money and you are the same. Only some bureaucrats have gained.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Pramendra, sir, you have any question? Any more questions?
No, sir. No, sir. Thank
Okay, I have some question for you, sir. Once again,
Please,
I'm sorry,
please,
I
welcome.
asked too many questions, sir.
No. Good. मैं तो
Sir,
क्लास में ये
there,
कहता हूँ IITM में. मैंने कहा जो क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछा प्लीज गेट आउट.
in your deliberation, sir, you had mentioned that destination should seek USP rather than being the same as the neighboring area.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, when you say that each destination should have a USP, will that bring some competition among the destinations?
No, see, competition is again a double-edged weapon. I mean, when the moment you use that word, do you want competition or not? Do you want a Jaipur fellow to go to Ajmer, or do you want an Ajmer fellow to go to Mount Abu? Do you or not? Because you see, don't forget, economy के लिए जरूरी है. Agre wala has to sell his petha. He has to sell his dal
Yes, sir.
The handicraft has to see your cure. So competition is a very, if I may use a very dirty, is an American concept. You know कि हर चीज में competition लाओ. Why? जयपुर का जो मजा है वो जयपुर में है. अजमेर का मजा अजमेर में है. उदयपुर का उदयपुर में है. जोधपुर का जोधपुर में है. बीकानेर का बीकानेर में. So competition is in fact now the world over there realizing that instead of competition we should have cooperation. Therefore,
Yes.
countries even remote, they are having pacts with each other. See, a person who comes for one day to Brussels, he should go one day to I mean Belgium, then he should come to
Yes,
London.
yes, sir.
London fellow should go to Paris.
So, sir, when you say that there should be cooperation among the destinations, like
Yeah.
you said, Jaipur, Jodhpur, Ajmer,
Huh.
should there be some regional alliance between these destinations so that they can grow together?
Yes, Kumar Saab, fortunately or unfortunately, this is happening. They are already, you know, you must have heard of ASEAN.
Yes, sir.
So 10 countries of ASEAN, Cambodia, Thailand, and Malaysia. They have a very strong vote. Of course, there again,
Yes.
if you go do it with it, the cooperation has not come about as much as it was expected, but it is there. I mean,
Yes, sir.
common visa. You see,
Yes.
agar common visa, oh, it will solve well. But why should you go for 10 visas? You go for one ASEAN visa and it's there. So that's happening. And EU with I mean, EU
Yes.
is a classic example of success. And now
Yes,
even
sir.
even other countries in other parts of Europe, they're trying to have a commonality. I mean, currency. When I was young, like you, then I had to have so many currencies. Now euro Zindabad.
So that will be a win-win situation for everyone, sir.
Yeah. Hoega.
Okay. Yeah, hope so, sir, because we need that kind of strategy and policies in India where everyone can win and can be in profits. We have one more question coming up from Dr. Aruditya, sir. He is the young member in our team. Dr. Aruditya, please have your question, please.
Good
Can I
afternoon,
see
sir.
him? Is here?
Yes, yes,
Can
he is
you see
here.
me, sir?
Yeah. Jaswant, आप तो
Yeah.
कल भी थे. You were there
Right.
yesterday.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
हाँ बोलिए.
Sir, you mentioned in your presentation that
थोड़ा louder.
sir, you mentioned in your presentation that the facts are sacred and opinions are free.
हाँ.
So what is the importance of this statement in travel writing?
Very good point. You see, for example, I can say कि दिल्ली से जयपुर 320 किलोमीटर है. Okay, now that's a fact. But opinion ये होगी नहीं यार Jaipur is very far. Now very far is a vague term. So it depends on what you want to promote. Do you want people to Delhi walas to go to Jaipur? Do you want, or you can say there's only one flight for Jaisalmer from Jaipur or from Delhi. Now that is a fact. But your opinion can be, no, there should be 5 flights. So this is in fact, this example I'm giving is a fact. They have been fighting for more flights because otherwise to reach Jaisalmer from Delhi is very difficult. It's a long train journey. I mean, sometimes train journeys are very enjoyable. Like I did from Paris to Rome in 30 hours. And there was a German colleague of mine. She said, "Are you mad? Or are you sick? You're traveling 30 hours in a train?" I said, "You Germans will never understand what is 30 hours. 30 hours in India is nothing. I mean, you enjoy it. And the people you meet in that journey, I'm still remembering.
Right. Thank you, sir.
You are a faculty where?
Sir, in AITT only, sir.
Acha, good, good. I'm glad
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sajnani has people like you. And of course,
Thank you.
Mr. Kumar.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I'm there for last 10 years now with Sanjani sir.
Also, you are friend of Naidu.
We are all friends, sir.
Yeah,
We are
yeah.
all friends. of
Naidu is
Naidu.
at Warangal now, no?
Yeah, sir. She is in the Andhra Pradesh tourism now.
Yeah.
Sir, we have one more question coming up for you from Dr. Suman Lata. Dr. Suman, may I have your
She
question,
was the
please?
MC, na?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, am I audible?
हाँ, बोलिए.
Yes, sir. So my question is, the administrative development happening since December 2020 in Lakshadweep is bringing environmental
Bit
concern.
louder. थोड़ा सा. 1
Yes, sir.
decibel.
The administrative development happening since December 2020 in Lakshadweep is bringing environmental concerns. So what are your views regarding this?
In
All of
fact,
the
if you-
environmental concern, yes,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
are going in Lakshadweep.
If you remember, I made this point specially. Do you remember I made this point? And this is one point which we as travel writers have to highlight, because this problem is not only there, it is in Ladakh also, it is also in Jammu, for example. And what you are saying is, what is my personal view? Lakshadweep should not, it should not be changed, because it is a time-honored thing. And the campaign was against one person, the administrator, who was trying to be very smart. So, if you, my one answer is that it should not happen.
Okay, sir. Right, sir. Thank you, sir. So I have another question. Like, as we are more focusing on a smart cities project, right? So in this, like, there are many monuments and many structures which are getting demolished. So how we can conserve these heritage sites?
You see, heritage is one point. Again, India has not done enough. There is a heritage society. In fact, there was not enough time. Otherwise, that is calls for a whole lecture on heritage. There's a heritage society in India, and they are doing a lot in TAC and other things. How to preserve heritage. And ये जो smart city का concept है, now that again is a calls for a very deep study. Whether smart city is a unpolluted blessing, or it is a double-edged weapon. नुकसान भी होगा. So smart city, I mean, what do you mean by? I don't think anybody, including the powers that be, wherever they are clear what is smart city. Does smart city mean the tap water should be 1 glass of water should cost me 20 rupees? Is it a smart city? So smart city and heritage preservation should not contradict. Heritage pe to aajkal world over, heritage is the in thing. I mean, why is India so popular abroad? Because of heritage, not because of Hyatt Hotel, not because of Taj Hotel. It is our heritage.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good. You spoke well. Yeah.
Right, sir. Thank you very much. I would request if any other member in my team and the audience have any question for sir, or you can, the participants can click on the link shared in the chat box to give the feedback. And also, Sunil sir, if you can share the assessment link for today also. Sir, we actually take feedback for every session.
I know.
At the end,
in fact, yesterday I was the first one to give.
And at the end, sir, we take the assessment as well, so that there is a continuous learning of the participants, sir. In fact, we are also learning great from all speakers, sir. So far, we have heard more than 150 years of experience since last day, sir. Because we calculate by the number of years you have, sir. Like your experience is more than 40, 50 years, 40 years. So we have actually heard more than 150 years of experience. My request to all participants is to click on the feedback link first, give the feedback. That's a kind of attendance as well. And then you go for your assessment that is shared again.
Thank you. I really like the questions.
Sir, we are waiting for campus to open. Once it opens, we will surely invite you, sir, and we'll have a face-to-face interaction because that's more important to have it.
Oh, yeah. And you have a lovely campus.
Yes, sir.
And earlier, your vice chancellor, she was a HOD, na?
Yeah, she's
Because-
there, sir. Dr. Balvinder Shukla, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Right, sir. I think we need to close it here because the
Okay, thank you.
participants will take 5 minutes to complete their assessment and feedback. Thank you very much, sir, for giving your precious time here and sharing your valuable thoughts, valuable experience with all
Thank
the
you.
participants.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, sir. My request to all participants, please complete your assessment and complete your feedback because in next 5 minutes we'll be closing it. Sunil sir, we give 15 minutes for assessment, na?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll close at 15:15. 3:15 we'll close. Suman ma'am, if you can share the link for tomorrow's session in the chat box.
Yes, sir.
Suman ma'am, have you shared the link for tomorrow?
No, sir, not yet. I'm just sharing.
Okay.
Please give me
Okay,
2-3
okay.
minutes only.
Okay.
Should I disconnect?
Yes, sir. You can disconnect, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
मुझे कुछ याद तो नहीं
Yeah.
करना ना?
नहीं sir.
Okay.
बस we are waiting for the participants to respond to our assessment.
Okay. See you.
See you, sir, tomorrow, sir. I will send you the link, sir, if you can join tomorrow also.
Why not?
Yes, sir.
This is my first love. This is my first love.
Right, sir. I will send it, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Suman ma'am has shared the link in the chat box for tomorrow's session. So my request to participants is that they can copy it and keep it with them for joining tomorrow. I think all of us can now log off except me and Sunil sir. We'll be waiting for participants to respond to assessment and we'll close at 3:15. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you, sir.